Welcome back to the Brewer Fanatic podcast. I'm Spencer Michaelis, not joined by Jack Stern this week. We have a special guest filling in, Ryan Topp of Milwaukee Tailgate. Ryan, I would ask how you're doing, but I'm going to let our listeners ask that question because we have our classic opening question from Jackson Cheerio fan asking, how's your guys' week going, and do you have any plans for the weekend? So, Ryan, how's the week going, and any plans for the weekend?
Yeah, it's a pretty good week. I'm pretty much over COVID at this point, so that's good. That was annoying and caused me to miss some stuff. But I went to the game on Wednesday and recorded a podcast with James Anderson on the RotoWire network, and so that was a good Wednesday. And happy to be here doing this. As I told James, I love doing podcasts when all I have to do is show up and talk, and I don't have to do any editing. I don't have to do any posting. It's just I get to come and talk about baseball, and that's wonderful. So super happy about that. I'm excited. I was excited for you that you got to go up and see the Timber Rattlers. I'm going to be heading next Friday to see them down in Beloit because they're playing. What are they now? The Sky Carp? They used to be the Snappers.
Sky Carp.
I know. Yeah. Oh, the minor league name thing. It is fun. It's fine. I'm not gonna be an old man yelling at a cloud about that. But yeah, it's some of those. It gets a little exhausting at times. But anyway, yeah, I got a couple concerts this weekend. Going to see LCD Sound System at the Rave, which I haven't set foot in that place in a long time. So I'm interested to see what it's going to be like now that apparently they have air conditioning. Thank God, and because I've sweated out some summer shows in that place, and apparently they've done something with the sound to make it better. So that is my plan for the weekend, and watching the Brewers, of course. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, my week has it's been pretty good. Like Ryan mentioned, I did make my way down to or up to Appleton. I always say down to no matter where I'm going, I've noticed. I feel like that's a thing in general, but I said down to Seattle at one point. It's not down. I'm not going down.
Seattle's definitely up and out.
Yes, it's nowhere near down. But I went up to Appleton and watched the Timber Rattlers, and that was a great time. Had some nice seats, got to see a Luis Pena homer and a Mate double and a lot of good defense from Mate, and got to watch Marco Dingus up close. A lot of fun. I did miss Andrew Fisher, so we're going to have to make a return at some point, and I may also be making my way to Beloit next week at some point. A little bit shorter drive for me anyway, so might make my way there. And Andrew Fisher, as of the time we're starting this, 2 for 2 with 2 singles when I was paying attention to it a little bit earlier. So good start to his high A career. But for the weekend, I don't think I have anything, and I'm very happy about that because I've been very busy lately, and I'm going to be thrilled to just get a weekend to relax and clean up some stuff and just figure everything out there. But I'm very happy with that at the moment. But yeah, otherwise things have been very good. And we can jump into the Brewers here because things have been very, very good for them as well. About as good as you can possibly imagine. We will start the weekend review with a little bit of bad news and surprising news that popped up right before the Mets series. Logan Henderson was placed on the 15-day IL with, at the time, elbow soreness. Turned out to be more of a flexor issue. Doesn't sound like he's necessarily done for the season, but the return is probably looking at late September or early October. So I would say he's probably done for the season. I mean, maybe they're counting on some sort of rehab stuff before that, and then that would be when he's ready to pitch real games. But if that's where they're expecting him to start rehabbing, I'm not depending on Logan Henderson to be ready at any point this season. And I think that's okay because he's going to be very, very important to next year's team, assuming they do lose at least one of the top of the rotation veterans that they have in their rotation right now. So I would be safe with him. He had a really good opening debut to his MLB career this year, and let's make sure he's healthy for 2026, in my opinion. But the move to replace him, Tobias Myers, was recalled. He started the game on Saturday, which we will get into in a second. But game 1 of the series, the Brewers end up winning this one 3-2. Bit of a comeback. Brewers, it's it's been mentioned many times on the broadcast and throughout, but the Brewers could not come back from anything early in the season. They've made it very much a habit of late to be able to come back and get themselves back into games and win games that they may have to point. And this was the case here. Brandon Woodruff on the bump for this one, went 7 innings, only allowed 3 hits. 2 of them were solo home runs, kind of continuing a trend that we have seen from him quite a bit in his return to health on a major league mound. But again, continuing a trend as well of very, very strong starts. He walked 2, he struck out 8, and again, only the 2 earned runs on the 2 solo homers. The Brewers were down 2-0 before Senga made an error for the Mets, and Brice Turang, as the Brewers have been doing, took advantage of the error and hit a 2-run home run. That was a theme that we will see throughout the week as we go back through this. Brice Turang power showing up very, very often this week. The Brewers took the lead on a Isaac Collins hit by pitch with the bases loaded. Abner Uribe had a clean inning, and then Trevor McGill came in to close it out. He ended up giving up 2 hits. The second hit was a blooper to center field, and Blake Perkins, kind of a repeat from last year in the Red Series, came in on it, fired home, 97-mile-per-hour throw right on the money to home to gun Starling Marte out, and a really nice tag, really nice sell job by William Contreras to kind of act like the throw wasn't going to be there as well. So a very good play by both of them. Ryan, first of all, that play, I don't know, were you watching this one live? Yeah. So I was up in Door County watching it with pretty much my entire extended family at this point, because we were kind of wrapping things up for the night and everybody was just huddled around my brother's phone watching the Brewers game. And yeah, I mean, live, I honestly thought he snuck in there and that it was a tie game, called them out. I think you mentioned on Tailgate Podcast that you were kind of similar, that it looked like he might have been safe live. I thought on review they might overturn it. And yeah, no, he was out very clearly. Very good tag by Contreras, like I said. But what was your reaction to that? And it just, Blake Perkins constantly making winning plays since he's been back. It's kind of the same thing he's always done with the Brewers, but even offensively he's been great, but the defense is just always there, and a really, really good play here to close ground and make a good throw to home.
Yeah, I kind of forgot what an arm he has, and he really does have a hose. Like it's not the first thing you think of when you think of his defense, because obviously he's so good at getting to baseballs and his range, his stealing back home runs. Obviously, he's done that a bunch. Those are the things that pop right to mind. And then this was a good reminder that, oh, right, he can actually just gun people down too. I think his arm is in the close to like the 90th percentile in terms of arm strength. So he is, yeah, absolutely has that tool in his bag that he can use. And yeah, I was totally blown away and yelled, and I think scared the cat and all of that. Like it was an extremely exciting moment, and just it was sort of a, okay, I guess they're going to win a game like that now. And you just go, well, what is going to happen next? And we obviously the rest of this series, we have other things that we got to talk about, but you just sort of at this point are going, well, what else can go right? And so you get a moment like that, and it's pretty wonderful.
Yeah. I think my favorite part of it too is that it looked so much like a Blake Perkins play where he threw that ball 97 miles per hour. And if you were just watching the video of him making that throw, there's no way you would have thought he threw that ball that hard. Everything he does is so smooth, and it looks just almost lackadaisical to an extent, but it's very smooth. It's very clean, and there's like no wasted movement in anything he does. And the throw was right on the money, and it was a really impressive play. And like you said, it just felt like, okay, how does everything kind of keep going exactly how you would hope it would go in these moments? But a great play by him, a great play by Contreras. I wanted to bring this up because I was listening to the Tailgate Podcast this morning, and you guys were talking a little bit about Trevor McGill and his fastball shape. So McGill gave up 2 hits in this inning, and it is something that Jack and I have talked about too. Early in the season especially, he was not getting many whiffs on the fastball, and that had been something he'd been doing a really good job of since he came to the Brewers. The fastball had gotten quite a few whiffs. It's still not in a great place overall. It has been kind of trending up over the last probably month and a half or so. He started to get more whiffs on it, and the numbers have been great since pretty much that Boston series. I feel like is the last time he kind of struggled. But you guys were talking about the fastball shape and how you had a question kind of asking like, hey, it looks very straight. And that was correct. Like it is very straight. It does not have much horizontal movement. The thing that plays with it is, first of all, it's coming from, and you guys mentioned this, he gets quite a bit of extension. And he does get quite a bit of induced vertical break now. He's got a high release, so that doesn't play as well for that reason as it would if he had a lower release, kind of like we've seen with Logan Henderson, who throws the ball from like a 5-foot release height. But a guy McGill's height is not going to have that happen. And he's very over the top. He's got a high arm slot. So the fastball plays mostly because of how the curveball plays off of it, I think, along with obviously the velo and the extension and everything else. It's not a bad pitch. In fact, stuff models love his fastball. But it does not have much run. It doesn't cut, but it does have quite a bit of carry on it, and he throws it 100 miles per hour plus a lot of the time. And then you guys also talked about the curveball, how it was also not much side-to-side movement. It's very down. It's basically a 12-6 curveball. But I think that plays really well together because of that, and he throws it so hard. He can just go high fastball, curveball right off of it. He can throw a curveball. He can then throw the high fastball off of it. And even though it's a 2-pitch mix, if he's executing them, the hitter still has to guess right, because it's pretty hard to get on time and get on plane with either of those if you aren't guessing. And we saw it with Michael Harris a couple series ago. Like he guessed fastball, he sold out for fastball, and he got a fastball right down the middle and he crushed it. And there is some risk to that, but I think that's kind of the case with any reliever. So for me, having seen some of the fastball whips return, and I think he's upped the curveball usage in that time a little bit too, to kind of hide the fastball a little bit better, or at least not show it as often so that hitters can't just time it up and guess it as often. The fastball shape itself is actually pretty good. And like I said, the stuff models do like it. So, for me, that's what it is. I think it's just a really good combo for him. And he throws that curve as hard as almost anybody as well. So it's just really hard for hitters to, if they're not guessing correctly, and the spot probably more than even just the pitch, it's still going to be really hard to get on top of. But it does make him prone to home runs. Like he can give up home runs because of the way the pitch moves and the shape of it. If he throws a pitch in a mistake spot, a fastball, and they are looking for it, it's probably going to fly. Now, he hasn't given up a ton of homers this year. He didn't give up many last year. That does scare me a little bit. Feels like there might be a little bit of regression coming for him in terms of balls actually leaving the yard. But overall, I think he's got, like, I fully understand the question, because if you're watching the game, it does look like the ball's not doing much, but because it has so much carry, it just plays up above bats a lot still. And even though it's a higher release, like he's gotten up to almost 24 inches of induced vertical break on some of them I saw, which is ridiculous for anybody. So it's still a really good pitch. It looks maybe a little different to the eye, but because of how he uses them off of each other, I do think it's a pretty good fastball still, even beyond the velocity. I think the movement and everything else plays pretty well. But I know you had mentioned before we even started talking here that you had said dead zone on the podcast. It's not necessarily a dead zone fastball. It's more of a dead zone fastball, just for people who aren't aware. I would consider that more in like if the induced vertical break and the horizontal break are very close to each other. So like 11 inches of induced vertical break and 11 inches of horizontal, or even like 13, 11 or whatever. Like if they're very close to each other, that is when the ball behaves exactly how hitters are used to it. That's why it's called a dead zone fastball. That's when the ball basically moves how a hitter would expect a ball to move over the course of their entire career, what they've seen, the average fastball. This is how it moves. And what you're looking for is outliers in other directions that don't move how a hitter would anticipate it moving. And that's how you get them to, in the moment of this third of a second that you have to react to this pitch, to get your swing plane slightly off, and maybe you get the barrel to a ball, but you pop it up, or you hit a fly ball because the ball just barely hung up a little bit higher than you would have naturally expected it to. So that's kind of the whole goal of this, but I'm curious just to hear your thoughts on it. And I, like I said, I totally get what I can't remember who asked the question, but what they were asking in that, like it makes sense. If you're watching, it doesn't look great most of the time. It just looks like a hard fastball that doesn't do a lot. But I think that carry is what maybe fools people a lot of times.
Yeah, I think that he's capable of changing eye levels pretty clearly, because just there's such a stark difference in terms of the vertical between the curveball and the fastball. So as long as he's got hitters kind of guessing on those, they're going to have to change their eye levels on those. And I know he can also locate that fastball. He sometimes will locate that more at the bottom of the zone, and sometimes he'll locate it at the top, which gives it even more of sort of a variance for him to be able to work with. But I think that it's fair to say that like Trevor Megill is sort of, he has the standard limitations you think of when you think of a guy who is a 2-pitch relief pitcher, 4-seam fastball, breaking pitch. And there, we've seen guys like this come and go with the Brewers over the years, thinking way back to, John Axford, even all the way back to Derek Turnbow. These guys were really, if I'm remembering correctly, were like 2-pitch pitchers and kind of had this profile. And it always kind of came down to, and I think it does.
Mm-hmm.
I play this game with Megill as well. If he's locating the breaking pitch and can throw it for strikes, hitters are going to have a really rough time. Like if he is able to put that pitch, he's able to put the knuckle curve in the case of Megill into the strike zone, then batters are not going to be able to just sit fastball and lay off the curveball at that point, and that's where he can do damage. But there are times when he doesn't seem to be able to locate it, and batters pick up on that relatively quickly when there have been days where he's not throwing that knuckle curve for strikes. And then it becomes a game of, okay, now they can sit and sort of anticipate fastball and foul off a lot of pitches and try to get one to hit, or, take a walk, because he is prone to doing that as well. So all the standard limitations come with that, but it's still a very good profile. It's something you can work with as long as it's working. You just have to be a little careful that when it doesn't work, there's going to need to be sort of a backup plan for that, because you can see how he could potentially get into trouble down the line.
Yeah, 100%. For me, the best Brewers comp is Knebel. Like, that's who he reminds me of the most, is just the high fastball. He threw the knuckle curve. He threw it pretty hard. He didn't throw it as hard as Megill does, and he honestly didn't have quite as much fastball velocity either. And he wasn't as tall either, but it's just that fastball knuckle curve combo that when it's going well, guys just do not hit it. But when it's left in the wrong place, it can get hit. So, yep, I would agree with that for sure. We should probably move on to game 2. The Brewers took this one 7-4. Like I mentioned, Tobias Myers returned for this one. Not a great start from him, not shocking, and it was going to be a limited innings no matter what for him in this one. He hadn't really built up yet in AAA. Again, that was kind of the plan, and then with this Henderson injury, he had to come back a little bit earlier than they were hoping. He went 3 1/3. He gave up 5 hits, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, 3 earned runs in those 3 1/3 innings. 2 of them came via Pete Alonso and Starling Marte home runs. The Brewers scored their first 2 runs on a Francisco Lindor error. Juan Soto kind of came right back and hit a homer off of Aaron Ashby, and then Sal Frelick had an RBI ground out that ended up tying the game at 4 at that time. Oh, I missed again. I already talked about it. Brice Turang hit a homer in there. He just, again, he kept doing that all week, so that's maybe why I glossed over it. But he hit another home run. Then Frelick tied it with that RBI ground out, and then Ronnie Mauricio had an error on an Isaac Collins grounder. It was initially marked a hit. They changed it yesterday, I believe, actually, and that helped Ryan Helsley's ERA out quite a bit. But it was a well-hit ball from Collins. I think they made the right call calling it an error in the end, but he was able to get up to 103 at the top of the zone and put a decent swing on it. So good job by Collins regardless. Then the William Contreras at bat happened that I think Mets fans and a lot of other people were probably the most. I think this was where the Brewers got their lucky. People calling them lucky again here. William Contreras hits a well-struck fly ball to right field. It looks like the inning is over, and then they call him back to the box, and they call a pitch clock violation because Helsley didn't get the pitch off in time. That's the first time, by the way, with the pitch clock that I have seen that. I haven't seen a pitch thrown, a ball put in play, and then they call the pitch clock violation. Like I haven't seen that this entire time. So that was a new one for me. But William Contreras gets back in the box and turns the next 100-mile-per-hour pitch around right into the Brewers bullpen. So an interesting play there, but have you seen that? And I mean, it just, again, feels like the Brewers keep taking advantage of every single second chance that they are given at this point.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what this is just every time there's something like that happens, you just know it's going to happen. I was joking in our group chat today about the Blue Jays who failed to get a runner in. They had a couple of chances with with a runner in scoring position in the eighth inning that would have made it a 3-1 lead. They still ended up beating the Cubs 2-1. But I joked, like, the Blue Jays should try getting a hit with runners in scoring position. It works really, really well. And like, that's how you do this thing. But it feels like every single time they come through, whenever a team leaves the door open at all, they just come busting right through. And it's been absolutely amazing to watch. And I don't quite know what to make of it, because this is not my normal experience with baseball. This is not really anybody's normal experience with baseball. You sort of tend to forget those cases, and you think more of the times when it just didn't come through. And I think the Brewers right now might be the only team in baseball where all the fans are like, yeah, we love how we hit with runners in scoring position. It's great. I think there's many other teams that are as happy with how they hit with runners in scoring position right now as the Brewers are.
I'm not sure there are teams in the history of baseball who are as happy as the Brewers are with how Brewer fans are with how the Brewers are hitting with runners in scoring position. This is very abnormal. But it is, I mean, it's part of their approach. It's the way they play that it helps it happen. This one closed out a much easier job from the bullpen this time around. Shelby Miller, Jared Koenig, Uribe, and McGill all throw scoreless innings, close it out for the 7-4 win. Game 3. This was probably the win that kind of had me thinking, like, yeah, they're going to get to 12. The Mets jump all over Quinn Priester in this one, go up 5-0. Priester's final line in this one was 4 1/3. He gave up 10 hits, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts, and 6 earned runs. Brett Beatty and Cedric Mullins both homered. It was 5-0 early on, like I mentioned. The Brewers score 3 to make it 5-3 at the time. William Contreras hit a solo homer. Joey Ortiz had a 2-run single. Priester went out and immediately gave one of the runs back, and that was kind of the end of the line for him in this one. Did a good job at least fighting to give them innings while he clearly didn't have it, and the Mets were kind of jumping all over him on a lot of things, which is going to be important, especially as we get into this next string of games after starting Friday, and they play 19 in 18 days. But a good job from him to at least keep them in the game in that moment, I guess. And then William Contreras comes right back up, hits another home run, a 2-run homer this time, makes it 6-5. And then in the 8th inning, Joey Ortiz with another RBI hit, an RBI single, ties it. And Isaac Collins, I mean, not much more to say about Isaac Collins, but he steps up to lead off the inning in the 9th against Edwin Diaz, who I believe had not given up a run in almost 3 calendar months, earned run in almost 3.
It had been a while.
Yeah. And I think it was 1 earned run since April, if I'm remembering correctly. So not much has been done against Edwin Diaz, and for good reason. He's a very, very good pitcher. Isaac Collins didn't care. He gets kind of behind in the count, and he's still looking fastball. Gets a slider, he said. Even he seemed surprised that he hit it out in the post-game interview, but he gets a slider. He kind of pokes it. I was convinced it was going to just kind of fall at the wall as I was watching it. Like, it just didn't seem like a good enough swing to get out, but as things have been going for the Brewers and for Isaac Collins, it snuck out into the I don't know if it's still called the beer pen, but that's what I always call it, in right field. And I mean, walk-off homer. The guy was at the time the reigning player of the week in the NL, or maybe that is what ended his NL player of the week campaign. I can't really remember now, but either way, he recently won that award. He won rookie of the month and finished off this sweep of the Mets with a walk-off homer. So, I mean, what more can you say about Isaac Collins at this point?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously he is a fantastic approach at the plate, right? Like this is a swing decision guy par excellence. Like he does that really, really well. And there's a good swing in there, and he is able to sort of spray the ball to all fields. And there's just enough power where, yeah, he's capable of doing this sort of thing. But yeah, this is a guy where he's a 28-year-old. He wasn't a highly touted prospect. It took him a long time to make his way through. I saw an interview with him on MLB Network, and he was talking about that history, talking about how it took a lot of time for him to get here. So he's just enjoying all of it. But he seems like, especially if you think going forward, a very good utility guy. And I know that he has turned himself into a fantastic outfielder and just gets great jumps over in left field, which makes him one of the best left fielders in the game. But there's also still the history of him being an infielder. And I think that once the pixie dust wears off a little bit on him, we're still looking at a pretty damn good utility player for them.
Yeah.
And especially a lot of things, the defensive versatility is going to be very useful. And the fact that he's hits from both sides is also going to be useful and allows for a lot of different uses for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jack and I talked about it last week, and we both kind of agreed, like, yeah, he probably settles into being more of like a league average hitter. But I do think something I hadn't brought up, and neither of us brought up at the time, is that he has made legitimate improvements over the course of this season that, while the expected numbers and a lot of that stuff don't look great on the whole for the season, the last couple months, a lot of them look a lot better. And early in the season, he especially struggled with fastballs and velocity. And that has completely changed in this really, really good run that he's been on. He has been, I mean, really great against fastballs. And I think there might have just been a bit of an adjustment to seeing that type of velo as consistently at the big league level. So I may have even undersold a little bit of what I think he can be in the future, but I still think what that is a guy who plays a decent amount, but is more of a utility type, like you said. I mean, I think this is, you could probably fit him in at second base once in a while. He should play left. He can play some right. Like, you can get guys days off using him and getting him in regularly still. I think especially from the left side is where he's at his best. I think he has some power from the right, but more often than not, I would like him facing the righty starters, and I think you can make that work. But at the same time, like, if you're getting Turang a day off at second and you play him there against a lefty, like, that also makes some sense. So I think there's always going to be a role for him as long as he's doing what he's capable of. And I think, again, I would still maintain that he is overperforming what I would expect from him going forward. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just what happens. Sometimes these guys are going to have better seasons than you would anticipate, and also then maybe they necessarily would, quote unquote, deserve, but that doesn't take anything away from him. He makes great swing decisions. He does exactly what the Brewers are wanting him to do. He hits the ball at ideal launch angles. He has good at bats. Like, there is a ton of good with Isaac Collins, and I wanted to revisit that because I felt afterwards, after recording last week, that we were probably harsher than I think we meant to be. I think maybe just to try and ease off some of the crazy excitement that we've seen about him and just make sure that people don't like think he's a 140 WRC plus guy moving forward, because I don't think he is. But I also think that he's probably a bit better than what I was saying last week, even. So, yeah, a really, really good moment for him. And again, he had a great homestand here. We'll probably bring him up a couple other times as we go through the Pirates series, which this one a bit more convincing than some of these the Mets wins were. Game 1, the Brewers take this one 7-1. Quintana on the mound, very solid start for him. 6 innings, 3 hits, only 1 walk. Again, limiting the walks is a really important thing for him every time out. Like if he can keep those in check, he's going to get grounders. He's going to let the Brewers defense play behind him. And that's what he needs to do. But obviously he still has to kind of hang around the corner. So there are going to be walks involved. He struck out 3, and the only run he allowed was a Joey Bart home run. Honestly, not even that bad of a pitch, I don't think. I think Bart just kind of went out there and poked one to right, and there was a good piece of hitting by him. But Brice Turang, once again, leading off this game for the Brewers with a home run. I mean, Jack's not on here, so I'm not going to praise him too much, but he could not have written that article at a better time. I mean, it could not have come at a better time. And Brice Turang has just been putting on a show in the power department, which I just cannot believe. We talked about it last week. I know you talked about it a little bit too, but like for me, and I'm curious on your thought because I don't think you guys mentioned this on your podcast, but I guess it doesn't even sound that crazy now because 20 homers is kind of within the realm of possibility this year, but I really do think there's a world where he's like a 20 homer second baseman playing great defense, still with batting average, still with stealing bases, like a 2020 type guy, maybe even more steals. Like you were always very high on Turang's ceiling. I should note, like this was always something that you were probably higher on than most. What do you see as his kind of, I don't want to say like insane ceiling, but like legitimate something you can see moving forward for him as a ceiling? Because for me, I think it's like a legitimate almost every year all-star type if the power shows up as often as it seems like it might.
Yeah, I think he's probably more of a mid to high teens. Now, this is always sort of dependent on what the hitting environment is, because every once in a while
Right.
now we get a crazy baseball and like balls are flying out of the park. And with that sort of thing, who knows what he would do. But I don't know if he's going to hit 20 home runs this year, but the way things are looking, he's going to have some 20 home run seasons in his time here. Like we're just getting into, he's 25 now. He's just getting into sort of the prime of his career. And I always bring this up because Keith Law wrote about this. I don't know, it's like 2021 or something. And when he wrote about it, he said, Brice Turang is going to figure out like which pitches to attack. And when he figures out which pitches he can attack, there's some power in that bat. And he's potentially a 15 to 20 home run guy. And we're seeing that come to fruition here. That is what this is. And I think, it really is a matter of him sort of figuring out when to be aggressive and when to do this. And he's not doing it on most of his swings. He's picking and choosing and being very selective about when he is choosing to do this. But when he does, I mean, especially this week, he had a home run, a 430-foot home run this week, right? One of the ones he hit was absolute no doubter. And it's like, that's not sneak you over the wall sort of power. And I'm looking at his home run spray chart. And most of his home runs, these are not wall scrapers for the most part. These are ones that have substantially cleared the field of play. And so there is legitimate power here, but it comes down to a question of him for balancing that against the other things that he does really, really well. Because I don't think he wants to give up the fact that if you look at the spray chart, he sprays the ball to left a lot. He really, in terms of, he has more hits to left field, though when he hits a home run, it's most of them are pulled. He hits a few to left center, kind of into the edge of the bullpen there. If you're talking about AmFam Field, but most of his home runs are pulled. They are to the pull side. But as far as like when he's a doubles hitter, most of those are actually going to left field. He's spraying those the opposite way. And I don't think he wants to give that up. I think this is a case of him wanting to try to find the right balance between finding certain pitches in certain counts that you want to attack and hit for power, but most of the time looking to just spray the ball around. And I think he's hitting that balance really, really nicely at the moment. Though obviously, they put the stat up at the park on Wednesday that he in the month of August has 6 home runs. So 6 of his 12 home runs this season have come since August started. So he is definitely on a heater as far as power goes, but that just for him, it's more of a supplement to his overall all around good hitting approach that uses all fields.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think last time I saw the leaderboard they do for homers, which they put the average distance on, I think Turang might have had the highest average distance of everybody on that for the Brewers. So, like you said, they haven't been cheap when he's been hitting them. When he gets them, he really gets them.
Mhm.
But yeah, I agree with that. I think even in this Pirates series, there was like funny enough, kind of a 3 true outcome type of series for him. Like, I think he struck out 7 or 8 times in this 3-game series. He hit a couple homers, but like you mentioned, I think he doesn't want to fall into that sort of trap, and potentially start selling out for it, where it does start costing him in some of his at bats. And yeah, I agree with you. Like, he still needs to be that type of guy. He needs to be able to hit the ball to all fields, and a lot of his extra bases, like you mentioned, do come to like left center or left field, and where he can kind of use the speed too to a ground ball down the left field line, turn it into a double that it might not be for somebody else. But yeah, I think just he's starting to find that balance, and if he can really maximize it, like that's there is 20 homer seasons in there. And I don't know, were you looking up how many times he struck out? I was going off the top of my head, but I think he struck out like 7+ times in this series. Um,
No, I didn't have
it's
that number.
either way. Okay, that's fine. I'll look it up at some point here just to make sure I'm not totally screwing him over on this, but I'm remembering quite a few strikeouts. So either way, like, I think that's the goal, is to not fall into being more of a sellout for power type of guy, but have them come naturally and come on pitches that he can hit. And we'll get into Frelick in a second too, but I think that's something he's made a really good adjustment on this year, is swinging hard at pitches he can do damage to. And in game 2 of this series, they both did it. But to finish off game 1 here, Christian Yelich also homered in this one. Frelick and Brandon Lockridge with RBI singles. And then I think my favorite play of the game was the Andrew Vaughn squeeze that was questionable on whether it was actually called or if he misread the signs, but the guy could not have put down a better bunt. And if he was faster at all, he would have beat it to first. It was a nice play by Haney, actually, to tag him. That's not something pitchers usually think about. I think they always are like, I got to beat him to the base, but Haney just kind of caught it and slapped the tag on him, and that's why he got him out at first. But an incredibly good bunt from Andrew Vaughn. I don't think that's something we will see much more, and I don't think it's something the Brewers want to see much more from him.
No.
But if he needs to, apparently he can, because that was about as good a bunt as you can have. And then the final run of this one, Isaac Collins triples, and then William Contreras singles him in for the 7-1 victory. Game 2, this is the game that I was in Appleton for, so I was just kind of following along with updates, not watching in the moment. And frankly, I was pretty surprised by some of the updates I was getting, including Sal Frelick taking Paul Skeens' yard to open up the game with a leadoff home run. That was not something I was expecting to see pop up on my phone while I was sitting there. But like I said, and Frelick has talked about this, and I think it was a Kurt Hogue article earlier in the year that kind of talked about how that was a real decision he made this offseason to go out and be okay with, he doesn't want to whiff, but he's okay if he swings and misses at a 2-0 fastball because he's trying to do damage on it. Like, picking the right spots to start to actually try to get to some power. And he's almost at double-digit homers. I think that's something he can do. Like, Turang has more power. He's a guy who I think can get to 20. I don't see that for Frelick at any point. But I do think like that 10 to 15 power is in there for him. And if he's getting to that, there is a lot more value for him if he can get some of the slug up, because he's going to hit for average if he continues to pick his spots well. Like, it's the same thing as Turang, just a little bit lesser in the actual power department. But it's been very nice to see him go out and to do it to Paul Skeens. I think it was a 98-mile-per-hour fastball to turn around. Like, that's good stuff. That is really nice to see from him. Frelick's been awesome, even coming off of his couple injuries he's dealt with lately. He hasn't really slowed down at any point when he's come back. The Brewers got to Paul Skeens earlier in the season. but I would say got to is a very generous description of how they scored their runs in that game. I don't know if a ball left the infield in the inning that they scored their 4 against him last time around. It was very different this time around. Like I said, Frelick leadoff homer. Then William Contreras' RBI double leaves the bat at 108. And then Turang hits the homer that you talked about that went over 430 feet to right center off of him. Like these were not cheap runs. These were runs that were very well earned against an incredibly good pitcher. And then Sal Frelick had an RBI single for the 4th run. But I kind of already asked this question because I forgot we had it. We'll quickly answer it for Ben here, who asked, do you see a potential 2020 future for Brice Turang? I think we both see it as a possibility. Is that right?
Yeah. At this point, I would say it's likely we're going to see it at some point. I don't know if it'll be this year, but
yeah,
I think sometime in the next few years, we're going to see him go 2020. I would be almost a little surprised at this point if it didn't happen.
Yeah, I would agree. The Brewers, after getting Paul Skeens out after 4 innings, which, by the way, I think my favorite stat that I saw, the last 2 starts he's made against the Brewers, he has 8 earned runs. In the 10 starts that were between that, he also had 8 earned runs. So the Brewers have been like the only team to get to Paul Skeens in this stretch. I mean, he has been unbelievable this year. And this was the first like true time that a team really got to Skeens. And like I said, did it with damage. So Brewers just continuing to find ways to do things that you're not expecting, like we've talked about a lot. After Skeens left the game, Christian Yelich hit a 2-run homer. Andrew Vaughn crushed a 3-run homer that when I watched the video, I was like, is that going to hit the glass out there? Like, I thought we might have I don't even remember. Well, I guess it's X-Golf on the glass now, but I thought it might clip that. And I was like, we haven't seen that in a long time from Brewer. I remember Weeks doing it at one point, and yep. I remember Rhys Hoskins doing it against the Brewers. I remember Hoskins doing it against the Brewers once. But yeah, there aren't many that hit that. So he was close. And then Caleb Durbin, Tony La Russa would have been very upset with this. We saw this when he was with the White Sox. Swinging at a 3-0 pitch against a position player and hitting a home run of his own. If people don't remember, Tony La Russa basically ended Yermin Mercedes' career because he like lit him up for doing that on his own team with the White Sox after he got off to the super hot start. That was like the end of Mercedes' career. Like he just fell off at that point. He basically retired in the next like week, and it was just wild. So luckily, it seems like Pat Murphy did not have that reaction to Caleb Durbin, nor did the Pirates seem to care, which is how they should handle it. You're throwing a guy out there who's trying to throw 40-mile-per-hour ephyses. If the hitter wants to swing, he can swing. Who cares? But yeah, Durbin, honestly, surprising for me was when I went and watched the video and saw it went to right center with him supplying all of the power. Like for a guy his size with the ball coming in at 40 miles per hour to go right center, like I was like, oh, I thought maybe he like yanked it down the left field line. I was not expecting him to be able to kind of put everything behind it and hit it like that. So impressive from him, even despite the circumstances. But yeah, a 14-0 win. Not much to talk about on that one other than the Brewers offense just crushing the ball. But we should mention Freddie Peralta because he had a very, very good start in this one. 6 shutout, arguably, honestly, probably one of his best, if not his best starts overall this year. Only gave up 3 hits, only walked 1. He struck out 7. He had a 41% whiff rate in this game overall, which is very, very good. I didn't go back and watch the whole thing. So if you want to say anything about how he looked in general, but just numbers wise, this looked like one of his best starts of the year.
Yeah, he really did this. He felt like he got comfortable relatively early on this one, and then just was at sort of his Freddie best as far as that goes. And I think the pitch count wasn't even that high. I think potentially could have come back out, but there was no need to do that. So they let it roll at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have to mention this because I saw Anthony Siegler pitched, and I was hoping that they threw a different handed batter out there because I really wanted to see if he would actually switch pitch. And he was apparently declaring it each batter. So I think he was going to. I think he was going to throw a lefty if they had a lefty up there. That would have been awesome. That's the coolest position player pitching ever. If you've got a guy out there throwing with both hands, like that would have been so great. I wish he should have just done it anyway. That would have been a great way to cap off the game. But he went out, and I think he was the first person all series to get Tommy Pham to not hit a ball hard. So that was nice to see too.
I was explaining to my parents the next day the Tommy Pham thing, and my mom was like, really? Like, I was telling her the story of the slap in San Francisco. She's like, is he crazy? And I go, yeah, I think he's kind of crazy. Like, yeah, he's a little bit nuts.
Oh, he 100%. That guy is one of the biggest pricks. I know people wanted him on the Brewers a couple years ago at the deadline. Like, no, I can't root for Tommy Pham. Like, I don't want him on the Brewers at any point. And I don't think he's the type the Brewers would ever want in their clubhouse either. So I don't expect that to happen. But yeah, Game 3 comes around, and last time, yes. Game 3 comes around. Last time this happened, the Brewers were at 11 games. I was in Seattle, and I was watching them play in Seattle, and they went out and they lost 1-0 with the chance for George Webb burgers on the line. They did not do that today. Well, yesterday, I should say, at the time of this recording. The Brewers went out and took this one 12-5, though I will get to this in a minute, but there were way too many people making George Webb jokes in like the 4th inning of this game. I was not enjoying how many people were playing with fate on that. There were a lot of people who were like firing up the grills, and I'll get to it in a second, but the game got a lot closer real quickly after everyone decided to make their jokes. So the Brewers in this one really just singled the Pirates to death. This was not a home run game. They had a lot of home runs on this homestand. This was not a game full of homers. Sal Frelick and Isaac Collins both had RBI doubles. Otherwise, every run they scored on singles or walks. Brandon Woodruff was on the mound. It was a planned short start for him. It was his first time going on 4 days rest, so he was always going to have a shorter start, but he went 4 innings, 4 hits, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, didn't give up an earned run. But I would say, like, you could kind of see some of the signs of a guy who wasn't used to the shorter rest. Like, some of the command was not as crisp. Some of the stuff it was kind of up and down a little bit more than we had seen, and that's fine. That he talked about it after the game. Like, he has to get used to doing stuff like this again, and that's part of the process. So good to see him actually, honestly, just able to do it. Like, that's another step for Brandon Woodruff to be able to go out on 4 days rest instead of 5. And during the stretch of 19 games in 18 days, like, they're going to need him to do that a couple times. So good to see. And like I said, another step for him. And in the end, he still gave up no earned runs in this one. Shelby Miller giving everybody some wonderful flashbacks of recent Brewers deadline acquisitions for the relief part of the team. Going in there and really just struggling in this one. And he had a good couple of outings prior to this in his first couple opportunities to go out there for the Brewers. And to Murphy's credit, I would say he's doing a good job of kind of keeping him out of high leverage for now. I still think, this outing aside, I think he's going to help and be able to throw leverage innings for the Brewers. But he did give up a 3-run homer to Brian Reynolds. He only went 2/3 of an inning. He gave up 4 hits and a walk. The stuff looked pretty normal. I would say the velo was slightly down to start the inning, but then he just did not have command. He was leaving stuff in very hittable places, and the Pirates, for some reason, decided to wake up offensively at this moment in time because they were doing nothing all series. It didn't even matter if you made mistakes for most of the series. They were doing nothing, but they started to take advantage, and mainly this was Brian Reynolds doing what he always does to the Brewers and kind of taking advantage of those mistakes and hitting a couple of home runs, because he gave up the 3-run homer. Miller did. Nick Mears came in and got the final out of Miller's inning to strand 2 guys at second and third. But then the next inning, he gave up a 2-run homer to Brian Reynolds to make it 6-5 at that time. And yeah, I kind of joke about superstition, but I also, when announcers are the ones that are making the jokes about these things, I'm always like, don't tempt. Like, let's not tempt fate. It's 6-0 in the 4th inning, and we're out here making jokes about everybody firing up the grills and hiring people to do overtime at George Webb. And I'm like, I get it. It's fun a little bit, but also as they hit these home runs, I'm just thinking, I'm like, this is totally how they've been winning all these games in crazy ways, and they're just going to blow this game to the Pirates now out of all of them. But luckily, the Brewers were able to tack on 6 more runs with, again, a bunch of singles, a bunch of even walked in a run during that stretch. And then Jared Koenig and Tobias Myers came in and closed it out for a 12-5 win. Tobias Myers threw 8 split changes in his 2 innings, and Jack had a good article up today at Fanatic talking about why he made that change and some of the stuff he's still working on with it, but I won't talk about the entire article. You should go read it for sure. It was very well done. He got a bunch of quotes from Tobias Myers, but part of it was that his old changeup, which performed really well for him last year, by the way, like results wise, was a great pitch for him.
Yeah.
He did not think he could throw it with conviction. So he thought he was kind of slowing his arm down. It was going to be something that hitters, the more they saw it, they were going to see it out of his hand and start to be able to jump on it. And if he was legitimately kind of slowing things down, like he's probably right, eventually that was going to start catching up to him. This split change, though, he feels very good about just throwing it with the same conviction as his fastball. And velo-wise, it's not that much different. He's throwing it a little bit harder than the original changeup was, but the depth is getting pretty close to it at this point. So he feels better about commanding it. He feels better about throwing it with the same arm speed. And so far, early on here, it's getting good results. And he struck out the final batter of the game on the split change. And like I said, 8 and 2 innings, like Jack and I talked about when he got sent down early in the season that we wanted him to throw the changeup more often because of the velocity bands that he has, where it was a much further away pitch than a bunch of the other ones. Like the cutter and the slider were both in that 85 to 89 range. And then the fastball was only being thrown in the low 90s. He had nothing that was like low 80s. That's what this changeup has been for him since he came back, is closer to that. And I think it just gives hitters a lot more to worry about timing wise. So, like I said, Jack had a bunch more on it there, and you should go read it. But just watching it, I like the pitch, and if Tobias is more comfortable with it, that only helps things. Like that's what you need a pitcher to be. He needs to trust it. He needs to throw it with conviction. And it seems like he really likes it. So, and Jack also mentioned, I should say, Shelby Miller has actually been a bit of a sounding board for him because Shelby Miller is one of the few Brewers pitchers that actually throws a splitter. And I think Myers kind of wants to make it a splitter at some point, like a true one. Right now, it's a little bit of a hybrid between a splitter and a changeup. That's why it's called the split change. Doesn't quite put his fingers as wide as a true splitter would. But honestly, with the way it's moving right now, I don't even know if he needs to. I don't mind him just sticking with it. And if it's working, I wouldn't say he needs to go full splitter. But Michael asked us about Tobias Myers. He asked, what would your plan be with Myers going forward the rest of the season? And what do you think the Brewers' plan is for him? So, Ryan, what are you kind of viewing as Tobias's outlook this year and in the future?
Well, I think long term, I'd like to see him continue to get chances to start like that more than anything. I think he can do it. I think it's going to be important for them. And I don't know if he'll be one of the first 5 guys next year, but he'll definitely be a guy who will need to make starts for them next year. And I hope he gets that chance. For the rest of this year, though, he's probably a swingman. This sort of thing makes sense to me. Next time out, I'm sure he'll be starting one of those games against the Cubs, right? That would have to be the plan there.
That would be my guess, yeah, because otherwise you're getting somebody on short rest and you can just have him do that in that moment and then go back to whatever the swingman role or even, just a couple inning reliever type. But yeah, I think that would make the most sense.
Yeah, and they've got to deal with that doubleheader on Monday, so that's going to require. And I mean, obviously, they have Chad Patrick who will be coming up for that. I would assume that that's all lined up, right? Like that would make sense that he would be the one who would be lined up to come up for that. But yeah, it's interesting going back to the point that you made about the changeups, because we highlighted that when we were looking at him in the offseason, and the changeup really was an extremely effective pitch. Paul's in love with that changeup. So we'll have to talk on this Sunday's podcast to bring the news to him that because I don't know if you saw it, that he's now throwing this split finger, because he had really backed off of, he threw changeups 11% of the time last year, and now this year it was down to 2%. So this throwing that the splitter is going to be important for him, because that changeup was such an important pitch for him. And like you said, giving the variation in velocity, that was a big part of what made him successful last year, was being able to vary such a wide range because he doesn't bring the top end velocity and doesn't have, hugely successful breaking stuff that's just, wipeout like that he needed to be able to show different looks. And so bringing this on is going to be important. But yeah, I think swingman is what we're going to see him do for the rest of this year, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what the Brewers will do. And I would also use him in that role. Like I said, maybe at some point he becomes, if you get all your starting back and you're in a point in September where it's not this crazy stretch of days, maybe it's that 2-inning Aaron Ashby, DL Hall type of role, which we saw him in a little bit even last time he was up before he got sent back down. So, although at the same time, they did say they want to stretch him out. So maybe after all of this is done, he does end up back in Nashville, just back on the starter type of role, and they go that route because they will have some other options, and we'll get to at least one of those in the injury updates in a second here. But yeah, I think they probably go the swingman route, and then if they have enough health and they have guys that they view him as maybe a little bit lesser than, then they put him in Nashville and just stretch him back out into a starter role and get him back used to that type of routine and that type of workload, and do that, and then head into the offseason with the plan of him being a starter again next year and then adjust from there if needed. So yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised he threw as many pitches as he did. He threw 66 on Saturday. And I'd pointed out, we were talking about this, that he had gone an entire month, and he'd gotten into 3 games and had thrown less than 100 pitches. Because he spent so much time on the major league roster waiting for Pat Murphy to put him into a game. And we were like, is Tobias Myers in the Brian Anderson witness relocation program right now? What's going on with him? And yeah, so he spent so much time in the majors not pitching that he just didn't get into games. But I could see that it was like, yeah, you're going to have to stretch this guy back out. And that is going to be a concern, which is why I was, I guess, at least a little surprised to see him come in on Wednesday, though. Obviously, it made perfect sense given the off day and all of that, and just trying to spread out the innings amongst and the pitches amongst all the pitchers. It's fine. It's good. It's not a problem that he did that. But I was a little surprised just because I thought maybe they would want to continue the process of stretching him out. But I think probably more, we're going to probably see him topping out around 80 pitches would be my guess. Like, probably not much more than that, if even that.
Yeah, I think 70, 80. I can't see him going past 80 unless, an injury happens and he continues to build up or something over the course of the rest of the season. I think 80 is about as much as you're going to see. And that's fine. I mean, that can get you 4-5 innings in a good day. And that can be just enough when you're asking somebody like that to kind of fill this role. So, yeah, I think that's probably the way they go. And that can move us into, okay, well, actually, I mentioned it a bunch of times, but like the free burgers are a real thing. So that actually did happen. Despite everybody's attempt to jinx it, it did end up happening. And I should get the details correct, but I'm sure most people already know when and where they can get them. But I think one thing that people may have missed in the announcement is that there are going to be vouchers you can get instead of going and getting the actual burger it's from 2 to 6 next Wednesday. So the 20th is when you would actually be able to go to a George Webb restaurant and order a burger for free and eat it there at that time. But starting on Friday, I believe it is, you can go into, starting this Friday, you can go in and grab a voucher for a free burger and then redeem it anytime between August 25th and 29th. So personally, I'm probably not doing this either way, but personally, if I were going to do it, I would probably go, and I think the voucher sounds like a much better plan than waiting in line for probably over an hour during that 4-hour span where it will be open for this. But I will say, like, I love that they actually do this. Like, this is such a long running thing for them, and they hold up to it when it does happen. And that's very cool to see. And definitely, like, go support them. Like, this is going to cost them a lot. So go support them. If you go there, like, order a drink too, maybe have an extra burger and buy one of them. But no, I mean, it's cool that they do this. And I think obviously the fans have always been very excited about it. And to be fair, anytime the Brewers break like 6 wins in a row, like they get quite a bit of advertising just by people talking about them. So I'm sure they get some nice kickback from this. This is a smart thing in their regard too. But yeah, I mean those are the details. If you want to go do it, go do it. Like I said, I think the voucher personally is probably the best way to go and make this happen. But yeah, it's cool that the Brewers actually made it happen. And I think if I told everyone on July, whatever that was, 22nd, that the Brewers won't get the George Webb thing now, but in like 3 weeks, they're going to have it. I don't think anyone would have believed that they were going to be 1 win away and then they would do it literally like 3 series later, 4 series later, and get it done. So yeah, just kind of a nice sign of how incredible this stretch has been for the Brewers in general. But moving into injury updates here, we have Jacob Misiorowski, probably the most noteworthy one for the moment because he is eligible to come off of the IL on Friday, the day this will be coming out. And the report is he will pitch in either AAA or Cincinnati, but it sure sounds like he's going to be in Cincinnati for this game, especially with Tobias Myers pitching on Wednesday, because he would have been the one that would have been lined up for this start on Friday. So I would guess we are going to be seeing Miz return on Friday. It'll be an abbreviated start like it has been for him most of the time anyway recently, but even more so with him missing a couple of starts and kind of having to build back up a little bit. But it sounds like he's all good to go. And it sounds like, to me, it'll most likely be happening in Cincinnati. So that's good news. Robert Gasser, he was scheduled for another 3-inning outing tonight, Thursday, when we're recording. He ended up only going 2 innings. He gave up 5 hits and a walk. He struck out 2, but he did only allow 1 earned run. So he worked around the damage. He worked around a bunch of base runners. So maybe probably not his best start, and probably why he was, I'm sure the pitch count climbed up on him a little bit, and that's why they held him to 2 innings. But he worked through it and was able to at least hold it to only 1 earned run. But we did get a question from HC Purdy on this one asking, do you think Gasser will play a role for the MLB club down the stretch? So, Ryan, do you see a path to him kind of helping the major league club this year?
I don't know if I would say helping, but I could see him pitching when they're like trying to set up their rotation or something like that. Like when you're trying to get things aligned down the stretch for the playoffs. I could see more of that sort of thing because I think he's far enough down the depth chart at this point that guys like Chad Patrick are going to get looks before he will. And Tobias, obviously in the swingman role, he'll probably be up and down some as well. So I would think it would be more along that line as opposed to playing an impact role, just because I don't necessarily see him. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't necessarily see him being a guy you want out there to like try to shut people down out of the bullpen. I don't think this is a guy that necessarily you're going to want to do that. So maybe, yeah, probably just more of a guy that they'll use to set themselves up for the playoff rotation.
Yeah, I think the only way I see it actually being something that helps the big league club on like a true playoff push type of role is if he fills one of those Ashby or Hall type of roles in the bullpen and he goes 2 innings. The stuff probably plays up a little bit harder or higher in that type of role. And I think he could do it. And Hall has still been great. Jack and I talked about it last week. Like that one just feels like it's definitely due for some regression at some point. At the same time, my guess would be the Brewers are much more comfortable with Hall moving into this end of the season because he's been up all year. They know he's been healthy versus what Gasser is. You don't really know what you're going to get from him. But I could see him pitching a few times in September when they have the extra roster spot. Like you just said, maybe setting up some of the starting pitching how they want to, let him go out there and pitch 4 innings and back him up with Ashby or Hall to kind of reset the rotation however you need to. But yeah, I would probably still be surprised if he was in I think if he ends up in a role that's actually meant to help in the playoffs, it's because someone got hurt. In probably one of Ashby or Hall. Like I think that's the role he would take over. So, but I do think I will say, like, watching him, I didn't watch tonight's. I didn't have time to watch tonight's, but the Appleton start that I saw, like the stuff looked good. He was up to 95. Cutter looked good. Sweeper looked good. Couple changeups he threw looked good. Like, I do think if he is needed to be called into action, he would be able to help the Brewers a little bit. But moving to Jackson Chourio, who is now running at 75% on the assisted treadmill. The plan is to begin a rehab assignment in late August, so kind of closer to that 4-week timeline than the 2-week, which not surprising. They're going to be safe with him, and they should be safe with him.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was hoping they might learn a little bit from Frelick, who I think they may have been a little quick on the trigger with bringing back, and then he starts seeing the knee issues, and like, let's be safe. You now have currently an 8-game lead in the division. You don't need to rush him back. You need him healthy when you get to October. Like, you absolutely need to have Jackson Chourio in this lineup when you get to the big games. And ideally, he gets a lot of September to kind of get back used to playing again. Rob Zastryzny is on a rehab assignment with AAA Nashville now. Rhys Hoskins has progressed to on-field hitting and defensive work, and the goal remains for him as well to begin a rehab assignment in late August. And then Jake Bauers was actually in Nashville today. He was assigned there on a rehab assignment. He had 4 plate appearances. He walked once, he struck out twice, and he went 0 for 3. So my guess would be they will hold off on Bauers coming back until September starts when they get the extra batter. He will be the first one back because Chourio and Rhys Hoskins will also still be most likely at that point on rehab assignment. And then they may have some choices they have to make. That's where it gets interesting when those two do come off the IL, especially with Hoskins. Like, Chourio will take Lockridge's spot on the, assuming nobody else is hurt, he will take Lockridge's spot. But the Bauers and Hoskins decision will be interesting. I think they will most likely go with Rhys Hoskins as the choice between the two at that point. And this is still assuming that Andrew Vaughn hasn't, I don't expect him to, but completely fallen off or gotten hurt himself, or like, there's still a lot of things that could happen. But it will be interesting to see what they do with the Hoskins-Bauer situation. I think it'll be a matter of, do they need a guy to pinch hit against the lefty or pinch hit against the righty? What do they think will be more important when they get to the playoffs? Because I think that's what they're both kind of looking at for a role when they come back, if they're on the roster. So we will see how that goes. Again, Rhys Hoskins hasn't started a rehab assignment. Who knows if he will even end up being healthy enough to come back at any point. But right now it sounds like they're going to be pushing for late August for him as well. So that can take us into some extra listener questions that we didn't get to throughout the week in review. Ben asked us, and this is a question I think a lot of Brewer fans have had recently, and we'll get into it, but it's worked pretty well when they've gone this route. But he asked, what is with the occasional replacement heavy lineups? I understand giving regulars rest, but why not stagger it more? And then he also asked, could Siegler's playing time be negatively affecting Caleb Durbin? His offensive numbers have declined as Siegler's time has increased. I understand wanting to platoon them, but so far it doesn't seem fruitful. So starting with the first question there, just the general very replacement heavy lineups. Those have happened in starts, games against left-handed starters. Like, that's when they've gone that route because they rest a lot of the guys who are left-handed hitters. You also, it's a very easy day to get Danny Jansen behind the plate when they have a lefty on the mound because he's been very good against lefties in his career and this season. You can put Contreras at DH. You can get Yelich off his feet. And then you can take Frelick out of right, or Collins potentially, depending on what you want to do there. Frelick has been pretty good against lefties, so you don't need to rest him against lefties. And then you get Turang a day, and you get Monasterio in there. That's really the logic behind it. I think it's not necessarily that they're just trying to put the bench in, but they see it as an opportunity to, we have a bunch of guys who are lefties who haven't necessarily been very good against lefties. We have guys on the bench who have been decent against righties, and we can get them a day off, get them some rest, and still go out and hold up. Like, no matter who the Brewers have been putting out there, the lineup holds its own. Like, it hasn't really been an issue. So for me, that's what it is. But Ryan, what do you think kind of the logic behind it, and are you okay with it? Is it something you like, or is it something that you maybe don't prefer?
Yeah, I've spent the last 20 years kind of rolling my eyes when people complain about Sunday special lineups. People used to complain about that with Ned Yost all the time. And it's like, well, no, you got to play your bench guys. You got to get them in there. And there's a usefulness to doing that. And especially in this case, you're absolutely right. This is about platooning, right? Like that's what this is. This is about trying to get in. They do this against lefties, and you get a bunch of guys who are left-handers out of the lineup and stack your lineup with righties, and it's absolutely fine. I am not worried about it in any way, shape, or form. It's fine.
Yeah. The other part of the question, could Siegler's playing time be negatively affecting Durbin? The numbers have come down a little bit for Durbin since Siegler started playing more. I don't think it's a drastic drop for him. But the logic behind it is that Durbin, while very solid overall, has definitely had very big platoon splits. Like he's been very good against lefties. He hasn't been awful against righties. It's like a 90 WRC plus. So he's held his own. He's been fine. But they want to get Siegler an opportunity for the same reasons we just talked about for the other bench guys. And I should also note on that, like the only thing you didn't mention is that part of the reason you have to get these guys playing time is if a regular gets hurt, these guys will become regulars, and they need to be ready to do that. They can't just have been sitting there watching baseball for the last like 2 months because those guys were playing every day. Like you have to get them some reps, and you have to get them out there. But for Siegler, I think it's because the Brewers really do believe in Anthony Siegler, and I am in the same boat. Like this is a guy that I genuinely believe is going to be a good major league player, not in anything incredible, nothing mind-blowing, but I could absolutely see him being kind of the left-handed version of what Durbin is against lefties, against righties. Like I think he can be a very solid hitter against right-handed pitchers. He's been a strong defender so far. He's had very, very bad luck. Like I threw it in a couple group chats. I think the Brewers may have sacrificed Anthony Siegler to the BABIP gods for everyone else on the team, which is a fair trade-off. Like, if that's what happened, deal, I'll make it every time. But this dude can't buy a break. Like, he cannot catch a break on a ball that he hits hard. Even in the game that the Brewers ended up walking off Isaac Collins, in the 8th inning after the Ortiz hit, Siegler hit a ball with a 600 expected batting average that Pete Alonso make like a diving stab on. Like the guy's had really bad luck. A lot of the numbers point to a better hitter than what the actual results show. And I think they genuinely believe that the best version of the Brewers moving forward this year is Durbin against lefties and Siegler against righties. And they've been pinch hitting him every time a lefty comes in to face him. Like Durbin hits if a lefty comes in to face Siegler. That has not been really negotiable. The only time it didn't happen is when they were out of players and Siegler had to hit against the lefty. Siegler used to be a switch hitter, but he was so bad from the right side against lefties that they made him a full-time lefty. But he has like 7 plate appearances in his professional career as a left-handed hitter against left-handed pitching. So they are going to go to Durbin if a lefty comes in. I don't think it's been messing with Durbin. I'm sure Durbin had a little bit more of just a flow, and like you feel more in tune with the game when you are playing regularly. But I also think that he was due for some regression regardless. Like he was hitting better than he actually is as a hitter. Like this was going to happen whether he was playing every day or not. And even then, it's regressed to still being like a league average or a little better hitter. And that's about what he is. So I don't think this has negatively affected it, but I am also one of the higher people on Siegler in general. So I'm sure there's a bit of bias there. Ryan, what have your thoughts been with kind of going to this pretty strict platoon against starters at the third base spot?
Yeah, it's absolutely fine. So you won't toot your own horn, but I'm going to for you on this. And Paul did in a recent podcast, I think it was the solo one that he did, where he talked about this, that like you were all last year banging the drum for Isaac Collins and saying, this guy's really looking good. He's showing me something in AAA. And you were really happy when he got the call last year. And I just want to point out that his first 19 plate appearances, granted, it's a small sample, but last year Isaac Collins did come up and he hit 118, 211, 118.
Yeah.
You have to give guys a chance to show that. You have to give Anthony Siegler a chance to show that he can be. Yeah, and it probably almost certainly isn't going to end up being as good as what Isaac Collins has been. Like that would be asking a lot from the baseball gods. That's that requires throwing a lot of people into the volcano. Like that's not probably going to happen, but you have to give guys a chance to do that. And to your point that he has been unlucky, I think that is indisputable. Looking at the BABIP, like I think it's indisputable. He has been somewhat unlucky, and I think that the Brewers have this luxury to do this right now, to give a shot to somebody like Siegler and say, yeah, we're gonna see what this can do, because Caleb Durbin is a guy who does absolutely murder lefties, but there's a ceiling on what he's going to do against righties. There just is.
Yeah.
And so the best possible outcome you can have is Anthony Siegler kind of gets it going and shows that he really can do something. And then that gives you yet another bat that you can use off the bench, either him or Durbin, a guy you're happy to bring off the bench and use that way. It just, for the whole team in general, you want to give guys a chance. And Siegler earned that in AAA. So we just need to give it some time.
Yeah. And I mean, with Collins, there's some utility ability, but there's very, very real utility with Siegler. Like he's played in the minors, he's played every position except for center and shortstop, and first base, but now he has played first base. He did it the other day for the Brewers. Like there is a ton of value that he can bring to this team if he can hit, and I think he can. So they're going to keep giving him opportunities. I believe that the Brewers have a lot of belief in him as well. We should note, though, he did leave Wednesday's game after kind of taking a knee or something to the face, and the report today is that Stewart Burroa and Tyler Black are being called up for the Brewers. So Burroa will fill Isaac Collins' spot, who's going to be going on paternity leave because he is having his first kid. So that one's not a surprise, but Black coming up makes me think Siegler might be like going on the concussion IL or something. So we will have to see what happens there. That's just me kind of speculating, but given how it happened, I mean, that would make some sense. And the concussion IL is only 7 days that you have to be on it. So it can be a shorter stint than a normal IL stint can be, but that's more a guess. And again, that doesn't change anything about it, but I figured we're talking about him. We should probably bring that up. Mason asked us, what are some of the things that Joey has done differently that's helped spark this recent surge in offense? So Ryan actually saw on Blue Sky today, you had a post talking about Joey Ortiz's splits from early in the season versus, I think it was like the last 68 or 69 games. And in that period, he's basically been like above average as a hitter overall. So I don't know if there's anything you specifically found that has changed. But yeah, what are your thoughts on his kind of resurrection at the plate?
Yeah, so to your point, first 48 games, so through May 21st, he hit 170, 226, 216, a 441 OPS. It doesn't get much worse than that. It was legitimately dreadful with the bat for that time. But in the 69 games since, he's hit 274, 325, 413, just 738 OPS, which is slightly above the league average. He's basically been a slightly above league average hitter for, going on 3 months now, basically at this point. Like it will be 3 months in another week. So yeah, and there have been ups and downs. Like he had some really, really awful plate appearances and really struggled at points in July while the team was going well. Sort of got lost in that somewhat, though people were noticing. But I think that we need to give him some space to just go do his thing. I think the defense is legitimately good, and so you're going to have ups and downs. There's going to be, not everybody is going to click, but he has been good enough for long enough at this point that I think we kind of just need to go, let's stop holding that first 50 games or so against him at this point and just let him cook. Like let him go. And I think we don't need to worry quite so much. Now, in terms of what is causing it, I'm not exactly sure. He's gone through these wild swings where he wasn't swinging at much early on, right? I'm remembering this right. And then I think it was Matt
Mhm.
Trueblood noted that like he just started swinging at everything, and that was like
Yep.
a big part of his resurgence in late May and into June was he just swung at everything. And I wonder, did pitchers adjust back in July? I don't even know how necessarily I would check those splits on Savant, but like I wonder if that was part of it. Now he's adjusting back. I'm not exactly sure what is going on, but his game does seem to, it seems like a high maintenance offensive approach. We'll put it that way with Joey
Yeah.
Ortiz. That like there's kind of a lot that goes into it, and he goes through these swings back and forth where he's doing things very differently at times. But did you find anything more specific than that?
Not really. I mean, he's definitely been making changes to the stance pretty regularly. Um, Everyone kind of noticed out of the All-Star break, he had made some changes to the hand placement, lowered them. I do think that has helped him a little bit. Um, but generally, I think right now the swing decisions have been better. Like this is in August, especially, he has been legitimately making better decisions, and that was the point that Murph was making when he benched him. That was the point of, like you talked about, he was hitting better, but he was swinging at everything, and that was what drew the ire of Pat Murphy at that time. Was like you're taking pitches down the middle and then you're swinging at everything else. Like he got into this mode where he was just kind of stuck, and he seems to be, his August has been great so far. Probably hasn't really been talked about much, but it's been very, very good after a bad July, like you mentioned. I think he's just getting comfortable. And I just mentally for a guy like, and I talked about this a little bit at the deadline, but they go through the deadline and they still say, hey, you're our guy. Like we're not adding somebody. We are still going to play you at shortstop every single day. And I'm sure leading into that deadline, he's hearing everything that's happening around the Brewers. And I'm not saying that players should be aware of this and they should be getting impacted by people talking about how, they need to find a replacement for him and all of this, but like they're humans, especially today. They have social media, they have family on social media, like they hear about these things. And
Mm-hmm.
you go into the deadline and the Brewers give you a huge vote of confidence saying like, we're not bringing in anybody to try and take your playing time. You are our shortstop. You're going to be there every day. We don't have anyone in AAA waiting to take your spot. Like this is your job. And I can't help but wonder if that just gave him a little bit more confidence this month where he's like, okay, I don't need to worry about somebody like trying to steal my job or me losing this job. Like this is mine. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to trust what I see. I'm going to start putting better at bats together. And like you said, I think the defense, like outs above average, loves him. Jack is definitely out on outs above average for infielders. I don't love it, but I think there's value to it. DRS still has him as I believe it's at -1 now, but that's like up 7 from where it was in like May. I think it took him some time to readjust to shortstop, but he looks good now. And he talked about it on MLB Network actually the other day, how it was something Kurt wrote about a while ago, but the timing of his prep steps and his jumps and just getting down early enough so that he can actually read the ball and react at the right time. I think we're seeing that a lot more. He's getting to balls up the middle that were going for hits early in the season. He's showing off really his athleticism in the field a lot more lately, which to me is when you see a comfortable guy. Like when a guy is making the types of throws he's making when he's off balance coming in on the ball, like that's when you know he's comfortable. That's when you know he's trusting everything he's doing. I saw it with Willie Adames a lot last year where he would come in on a ball and he'd like straighten up and try and go over the top or do things like that where like it's not athletic. It doesn't look comfortable. Ortiz was doing some of that early in the season. Now he looks like somebody who just similar to what I'm talking about offensively. I think he just really trusts what he's doing on the defensive side of things. And I'll talk about it when I get to the sandbox, but it's something I noticed with some of the Timber Rattlers guys that I watched the other day. Like it's a noticeable thing for infielders when you go attack the ball and you trust what you're seeing and you trust what you're doing and you trust that your body's going to put you in the right spot to make the throw. And I think he's doing all of that now. So I just think there's a confidence level that has gone up for him. And that would be my guess as to what has changed for him recently.
Yeah, to your point about his hot August, 391, 440, 543, and 983 OPS, and he's done that without hitting a single home run. He has 7 doubles this
Yeah.
month, but no home runs. So when the home run power comes, because we know he's got it in there, he really does seem to have heated up. And I think to your point about the fact that like he's probably not looking over his shoulder now, he just is able to relax a little bit and knows that, hey, this is my job. They've shown the confidence in me. There isn't anybody else here to take it away. You do wonder if that might be one of the downsides of, and it's a small one, and I don't think it takes away from their overall approach, but the Brewers are very much we're going to when guys struggle, they're pretty quick to pull the plug and either diminish their big league role or even send them down to the minor leagues. And that can have that effect on some people where you get looking over your shoulder, you get nervous. And granted, being able to deal with that mental side of the game is something big league players need to do anyway. So like it's definitely not like a reason not to do what they're doing, and they're very successful doing it, so they should continue doing that. But it is at least something to keep in mind that it can be a downside for some guys, that they can get into their own head and sort of exacerbate their own problems when things aren't going well because they're looking over their shoulder and they're worried. And so that the fact that he's definitely doesn't have to do that anymore, I wouldn't be at all surprised if that was a part of what we're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. I do think that is one of the things that, it's a benefit for the Brewers, but for certain players, I think it can cause them to feel like, oh man, I got a month to prove myself, or I might just be done with this team. And that can be tough. And like you said, it's not something that they shouldn't be able to handle, but they're humans and things happen. And sometimes you get in your head a little bit, especially in baseball. C Paul Martin asked, yes, it feels like magic, but what are the tangible and intangible things that the team is doing to keep winning? Bonus points on answering this question for finding insightful, unique insights. So apparently we don't do that usually.
I think
no,
you do.
it's
I listen to all the time, but I think you're insightful and interesting. I bring you guys up enough on my own podcast, so yeah.
I hope so. No, but I think it's fair because this is something that like a lot of people talk about. So most of the things that I would probably say are probably already things that are discussed. So I think things that maybe get overlooked in what the Brewers do very well, I really think base running is something that just does not quite get the love that it should, because in part the stolen bases have kind of dried up this year, not total wise, but efficiency wise, it's been a lot worse. I think people view it as like, okay, the Brewers are a much worse base running team right now, and they're a worse base stealing team, but they are an incredibly good base running team. They still lead MLB in going first to third on singles. I believe they lead MLB in going second to home on singles. Those types of things matter. Like over the course of a game, if you can single teams to death, you can only do it because you are constantly taking extra bases, whether it be on a bobble. Anthony Siegler did it in the last game of the Pirates series, a little bobble, and he takes second base on it. Or it's, again, just going first to third on a single to right field or even to left field. Isaac Collins in the Mets series kind of noticed Brandon Nimmo's just kind of, casually going after the ball in left field, doesn't slow down at all going around second, and beats the throw by a foot and is barely safe at third, but it gets you an extra base. And the Brewers just add bases constantly throughout games. And a lot of times I think it gets overlooked. Like it's not something that, to the Brewers announcers' credit, like they do a very good job of highlighting it, I think, but like it's still just not something that nationally or just generally you're watching a baseball game that you pick up on until you realize just how often they do it. And like I said, they do it more than anybody else in baseball. On top of the swing decisions, they do all of that stuff really well. This one I'm going to say, but I think this is the one that I don't necessarily believe translates to the playoffs. And it's that the Brewers play harder than everyone else in the regular season. Like they genuinely do. They are not finding themselves being lazy. They are doing things that other teams don't do, backing up bases constantly, running out grounders, getting all these infield hits. I think the reason that can get a little iffy in the playoffs is that now everyone's going to do that. Like, there's not going to be as many lapses in those types of things. So for me, I don't know that that's necessarily something that will help in the playoffs, but I do think it's a tangible and intangible thing that they do in the regular season that is putting them ahead of a lot of other teams. So those are the few that I'll come up with that I think maybe are a little bit different than what people usually talk about with them. But Ryan, what do you see from them in terms of just, I mean, the way they get this done night to night?
Well, to build on what you were saying about that, I mean, yeah, teams are gonna try harder in the playoffs. There's more at stake, so you're running out every single ground ball as opposed to not running out each and every ground ball. And that William Contreras thing that made me annoyed, but not his action, people's reaction to his action. Yeah. Some of the things that were said about him. I'm not gonna go into that though. Anyhow, but it's not like teams could just flip a light switch like that. Like the Yankees are kind of a mess from that perspective. Like you hear all the talk of the Yankees being this poor fundamental team and all this stuff, and it's undeniable that they got in their own way a lot in the World Series last year, and it was played a role in them losing to the Dodgers. I don't think it was the Dodgers, I think were the better team anyway, but they definitely got in their own way a little bit there. But what I want to talk about here, if you want insight, here's one for you: 2-strike hitting. I was looking at this the other day, and the Brewers are, as you probably would suspect, a really good 2-strike hitting team. Their 187 batting average is 4th. And now that doesn't sound good, but with 2 strikes, like a 187 batting average is actually quite good. Yeah. The Toronto Blue Jays lead baseball with a 197. Their on-base percentage is 265, which is the second best in the big leagues. And you might be a little surprised to find out, because I would have figured, well, so they're sacrificing some power, they're sacrificing some slug to be able to hit for average and get on base with 2 strikes. And actually, no, they're 8th with a 284 slugging with with 2 strikes. And so add it all up, and they're 5th in baseball with a 549 OPS with 2 strikes. They excel at this. And what really jumped out at me, I did put this on Blue Sky earlier in the week, but what really jumped out at me was actually when you look at the number of at-bats that they have, and with 2 strikes, it's actually a fairly high amount. They have 2191 at-bats with 2 strikes. This is MLB.com, and they don't do plate appearances. Do plate appearances, MLB.com. Come on, Petriello, win that war. Do that for us. But they have 2191 at-bats with 2 strikes, and that's 10th in baseball. But if you look at their number of strikeouts, and you can't strike out unless you get to 2 strikes. So this is just, a straight up rendering of how many strikeouts they have as a team. They're actually 24th with 946. So 24th in a good way, right? Like they're close to the bottom on that. So what that tells me is they're actually, even though they put themselves into a above average number of 2-strike counts, they actually strike out at a really, really low rate, especially when you consider how many chances they sort of give themselves to potentially strike out. This is a really good 2-strike hitting team, which goes back to all the swing decision stuff and all of that we talked about. But it's just sort of another way to think about this, that this team just does really, really well, even when the odds are against them. When you get to 2 strikes, there's an old saying that like the best pitch in baseball is strike one. And I think this was something that's written about in one of the books that I read a long time ago when I was learning about baseball analytics. And they talked about the fact that no, actually the best pitch in baseball is strike 2, because after strike 2, batting averages just plummet at that point, and offensive production just plummets at that point. Once you get to 2 strikes, the game very much changes at that point. And the Brewers, I would say they excel at this, which is sort of what you'd expect, but it's nice to see confirmation of it.
Yeah, I think even just to quickly tie it in with the swing decision stuff, like if you're going to be a patient team that maybe is willing to take a strike on the edge of the zone because it's not a good pitch to hit, you have to be able to do stuff with 2 strikes. Like, you have to be able to fight when you do get there. So the fact that they have guys who can do that on top of, being willing to have these good takes and, that's a pitcher's pitch. I don't need that. And then with 2 strikes, now I do have to swing at it. Like, that adds up. And yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's something that they're probably better than most teams at. And it's something that I think that's a thing that they can actually continue to do too, because I believe they have the players and the approach that actually leads to that. So yeah, that's a good one. Hopefully those were unique for you, C. Paul. But we will answer one more question and then we'll take the rest in the minor league section here. But Michael asked, is there anything special the Brewers need to do between now and the end of the season to prepare for the playoffs? They already seem to be severely limiting starter innings. So, Ryan, what are your thoughts on that? Is there anything super specific that you see right now? For me, I'll just quickly say, like, I think it's a little early for me to start planning too much of that right now. I think maybe as you get into September, you start to plan those out a little bit more, especially as the playoff, race maybe clears up a little bit more and you know exactly what you're looking at. Or maybe at least we get through the Cubs series with 5 and 4 and then we see what things are looking at. But what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm already seeing some of it. Pat Murphy has been spreading out his reliever appearances more. And I think some of that is just when you're winning by large margins, the way they did in like Pittsburgh or whatever against Pittsburgh, that you can do that sort of thing. And it becomes easier for him to do those sorts of things. But I really like that. And I like seeing relievers getting 3 days between appearances and then, being used that way. That's good. So thumbs up on that. Spreading around the starter innings and limiting guys like Woodruff. Obviously, this Mizorowski thing that they're pulling here with him. All of those things are things I like to see. We already talked about a little bit this idea that this team is at its potential best if Anthony Siegler starts to hit. So giving him that chance makes a lot of sense. So, getting at bats, spreading them around for the bench guys, giving them a little bit more playing time as we go here, especially now that we're into August, we're in the dog days. And yes, this next week is going to be super important because the Reds are quite hot at the moment and they're doing very well. And obviously this series against Chicago, the Brewers can essentially put the division race to bed with, and at this point they don't even necessarily even need to win the series to put the division race to bed. They should like not get swept almost at this point. Like don't lose 4 out of 5. Don't lose 5 out of 5. If you win a couple games, you just about, I want to say completely put the thing to bed, but it's going to be pretty close to dead at that point because the Cubs don't have any more head-to-heads to make up ground at that point. So it's just going to be really hard for them to do that at that point. So I think all of those things are good, but maybe that Cubs series means a lot. You need to sort of not necessarily treat it like must-win games because they're not must-win games. You handle it sensibly, but you want to do what you reasonably can to win those games because you can effectively end the division race and really probably lock up a bye. Pretty much, you do well in that series, you pretty much lock up a bye.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. Okay, we're going to make this a minor league sandbox, but Ryan is going to stay around because unlike Jack, he cares about the minor leagues. So he gets to be part of this. And we got a bunch of questions that are kind of minor league related this time. So Cheesehead Kami asked us, what do you think is the future of Craig Yoho? What part of his pitching has not translated to the majors? So Jack and I actually talked about this a little bit a few weeks ago after he came in and walked a couple people against the Cubs when he had a chance to close out a 4-run game and wasn't able to do so. So for me, I'll just say the actual future of Craig Yoho, I still think is going to be a good reliever for the Brewers. But the part of his pitching that hasn't translated to the majors is getting crazy chase numbers that he gets in AAA and at every other level of the minors. Guys just, for now, and this is something that Devin Williams ran into early on as well, and then even after his great COVID year, ran into early on the next year, where guys just were taking his pitches. Like they're not going to swing because they don't believe that you're going to throw 3 strikes. And even if you do, it's going to be in a hitter's count at some point where they can just sit on the fastball or whatever. So for me, and this is what I talked about a couple of weeks ago, like when he goes to AAA, he has to focus on not results, but I need to see him focus on those things. Like I need him to go and say, you know what, I need to just land a changeup here, even though it's probably a spot where, a guy might be sitting on it. He might get a hit here, but I need to just throw it in the zone. I need to be in the zone with this fastball here. And I need to work on specific things that are going to help me against big league hitters and not care if it doesn't go great in the process in AAA. And I think the Brewers need to kind of give him that type of direction. I think they need to tell him, like, you give up 3 earned runs in an outing, but you are doing what we are asking you to do in terms of finding a way to, I'm going to throw a fastball for a strike early in a count. I'm going to land this sweeper or this changeup and be okay if it's in a bad spot and it gets hit hard. Like, I think you have to have some room for that in the minors. So I still think it's going to be, again, I think he's a good reliever. I think he's going to be a good reliever for the Brewers, maybe even a very good one. But he has stuff that he needs to work on. And like I said, it just reminds me a lot of what Devin Williams went through. It's a different profile, even though they both have kind of the airbender type changeup. Like, it's a different fastball. He has a breaking ball. There's more to work with than what Devin has in terms of pitch mix. But it reminds me of what happened when Devin first came up. And I remember him getting taken deep in St. Louis into Big Mac land in one of his early games and stuff like that happening to him early on. Like, it's just, I think it's part of the process for a guy who got so much chase in the minors that he just didn't get used to having to actually attack the zone and have a legitimate plan against some of these guys. He just knew guys were going to swing at it. But that's my opinion. Ryan, what are you looking at for Yoho moving forward?
Yeah, he doesn't have big league command yet, and that's what he needs to figure out. And so, yeah, it all comes down to the command, because I think the quality of the pitches is there. He could maybe stand to do a little bit of tweaking to get a little more differential between some of these, but like it really does come down to the command.
Yep, 100%. Okay, 1821G34 asked us thoughts on why Josh Adamszewski didn't get the call to Appleton. It seems like low A is not a challenge for him at the plate. Also, can you give some thoughts on his defense and where he may profile going forward? So I think the answer to the first question is related to the second one. I think they want him to get regular playing time at second base in low A right now. He, with Pena, Mate, Filippo Dutturi, and him missing quite a bit of time, Adamszewski missing quite a bit of time, he just hasn't played a ton of second base. And with Mate and Pena going to high A, where they're going to be playing middle infield most games, especially with Andrew Fisher up now and he's playing third base, that's kind of the only way you get him infield reps, or the easiest way to get him regular infield reps. The defense, I think I'm a bit higher on it than a lot of the scouts that, like, the scouting publications and stuff are right now. I don't think he's like a great defender, but I think he can absolutely be like an average second baseman defensively, and that's all he needs to be with the bat. Like, he doesn't need to be crazy. I think he has good instincts. I don't know that he has like great hands in the field right now, but I also wouldn't say he's like frying pan Tyler Black that I watched in low A back then, when he just couldn't field anything at second base. And I immediately was like, oh no, he's probably not going to play actual infield spots. I also wonder, I will say, like, it would not surprise me to see him get some opportunities in left field at some point, or a place like that, to try and find a good place for the bat. But I think he can handle second base. So I think that's the reason he's not there yet. And the other part of that I will throw out is that I think at this point, Carolina might want to hold on to some players that are good because they are in the playoffs and they want to have a decent roster in the playoffs and get some of those guys opportunities to play in the postseason. But that's kind of how I've been looking at it. I get the question. I think a lot of people have that question. And even I, at times, have been like, man, it just feels like at some point, what is this helping for him to keep just mashing against low A pitching? But I think it's related to some of the other stuff. So, Ryan, I don't know if you have different thoughts on it, but that's kind of my view on it.
Yeah, this is about getting him playing time and getting him specifically playing time at second base. And that's just difficult to do when you have both Pena and Mate
Yeah.
also there. Like this just gives them a little separation. It was difficult for them to do that when they were all three playing on the same team. This gives them a
Right.
little bit more flexibility to do that. I want to ask you, so they can send Mate and Pena down for the playoffs because Wisconsin's not going to qualify for the playoffs. So like if they could send them
Right.
down
They
and
could.
have them what's the etiquette on that, or do you think that's something that's likely to happen? What do you think they're going to do with that? Is that something you could see them doing?
I don't think many teams are sending guys down a level to play in the playoffs. I mean, I think they would have a pretty good case to make if somebody complained about it. Like they spent most of the season there. They were part of the reason they're in the playoffs here. Like this is why
Right,
they're doing
they're
it. But
18
I
years
just
old. Yeah.
right. Like in terms of actual level for them, it makes plenty of sense. I have a feeling teams wouldn't be thrilled about it, and we'll see. I actually wouldn't be completely shocked if either or both of them were in Biloxi for their playoff push because they have so many infield injuries and so many people. Like I could see them maybe getting that opportunity with the double A team. In fact, I would probably say I would view that as the more likely. I don't know that either are super likely. They might just let them finish out the season and be done and let all the guys who are with Carolina fill that roster, or maybe even, a couple others that are still in the ACL end up coming up in the next couple weeks of the season. But my guess is that they don't go that route. I mean, you could see Brady Ebel or somebody getting that opportunity to come up and fill one of those spots too, because he's apparently looked solid in the Bridge League. And so maybe they do it that way and give another young guy an opportunity. But I'd just be kind of surprised. I feel like they would get pushed back and teams would not be thrilled about it if they brought them back to low A. But I think there'd be plenty of merit. Like I said, I just have a feeling teams might not see it from that perspective if they do it. And I don't think the Brewers want to be the team that's pissing everybody off in that type of thing. So, yeah, I'd be a little surprised, but I think it's a fair question, and I won't rule it out. I think there's at least a chance that they would consider something like that. Different Ryan asks, should we at all be concerned about K-Row's defensive caught stealing numbers at this point? Is he even a realistic backup next year? So it's a good question. He just came back off of another injury, hit a 107-mile-per-hour homer the other day. That was very nice to see some of the power show back up. The arm's not as good. It's not as good as it was. And the arm was insanely good before he got hurt. Like we're talking pretty close to an 80 arm for a catcher. Like it was a very, very, very good arm. I'm still getting pop times on him at like around 1.85 at times. Like those aren't bad pop times. Those are good pop times. That's still like a 55 or a 60 grade arm if you're grading it out on the scale. So like I'm not worried about the caught stealing numbers because I have seen the throws look fine. And for me, caught stealing numbers in the minors, it's just so reliant on are your pitchers holding runners decently. And in AAA, they're normally doing a better job, to be clear. Like this is not, you see bad stolen base numbers in the ACL or low A, like assume that maybe he does have a bad arm, the catcher, but it also is very likely that he was not given a chance on most stolen base attempts at the lower levels. AAA, it's not quite that level, but I've watched a lot of them, and a lot of them he just hasn't been given much of a shot. So like it's not going to be the same arm that it was pre-injury. I think the Brewers have basically admitted that. Like it's not going to be, but I do still think it can be a solid arm. And if the bat comes around like it has been a little bit lately, I still think he's a realistic backup next year. Now, I also would not be totally shocked if the Brewers have interest in bringing Danny Jansen back on a cheap deal now that he's in the clubhouse and is somebody who has experience. I wouldn't be shocked if they try to make Siegler a little bit more like a true backup catcher in the offseason again, because he showed decently there in AAA and he has gotten an opportunity in the big leagues. I think they'll have options, but I think K-Row's going to be one of them next year. What are your thoughts on that, Ryan?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because this is his last option year, right? Like next year will be his last option
Next
year.
year will be, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
now they can probably petition for an extra year, but that's a bridge you don't necessarily want to cross until you come to it. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit tricky. I do wonder. We've seen guys with a year from the shoulder surgeries, both with Woodruff and with Ashby, where it was like, yeah, they're
Mhm.
back. They're kind of they'd started like throwing and they were doing some stuff, and it's different for pitchers and catchers, obviously. But like I wouldn't be surprised if he is still not necessarily trusting the arm, or if the organization is telling him, dial it back. You don't need to go 100% here on this,
Yeah.
and just sort of build that arm back up slow. Just you build it up over time. Don't try to unleash, the hose in its entirety at this point. Like that would make a lot of sense to me if that was what was going on. So I'm just gonna kind of hold off on that for right now. I'm a little bit more concerned about the offense at this point, that like that has not looked great to date, but it's still early days again from coming back from these injuries and all of that. So we need to give it more time, but that actually probably catches my eye even a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I especially when he first got back, he that's been good to see. Um, but yeah, I think that's all very fair. Ryan also asked for some other injury updates on Luke Adams, Brock Wilken, Bishop Letson, and then also asked what was Eric Brown Jr.'s injury and any new swing mechanics for him. So starting with Brown Jr., the injury never came out. He's been out since like April 20th, and nothing ever came out on what he was hurt with. Like I think it was a leg, something in the lower half, but I nothing ever actually came out on what exactly it was. Um, in terms of swing changes, he's made swing changes over the last couple of years. I watched his first game back the other day. I didn't notice anything different than what he was doing at the beginning of the year, which is fine because I think he finally found the best version of his actual stance and swing, and now he just needs to play. He's just missed so much time, but we'll see what he comes up with. I mean, he was playing left field tonight. I saw they're playing him in different spots. I think that's the path for him now, is a utility type and see what happens with the bat. Um, I did see, and it was interesting. Like his 90th percentile exit velocity in Double A last year was around 103, which was like average for his age. So while the numbers looked really bad, he actually was hitting the ball decently hard last year. It wasn't crazy bad contact, but it was on the ground a lot. And it was also kind of like those 95-mile-per-hour fly balls that just don't really get the job done. Like they're fine. They're not horribly hit balls, but they're not good enough to actually do damage on. So um, I think his current swing is the one that's going to work if anything's going to work. And this is a guy I was crazy high on. I mean, at this point, he's missed so much time. He's gone through all these swing changes. The results haven't been there. Like I need to see something from him at this point. I'm kind of done trusting the process. I need to see what he can do, but I'm also not to the point where I'm going to completely give up because I do just, there's so much athleticism. There's there is some juice in there despite not a huge frame. Like, and he's not crazy old at this point. Still, he's about right for Double A. So like, I'm hoping he just gets a full season of health. Like if he gets that and it doesn't go well, then it's probably time to really, for me, say, okay, it's just not happening at any point here. But it's getting hard to keep trusting it because he can't stay on the field. So the other ones, Luke Adams, his shoulder that he banged up on a collision at home, still not recovering how they're hoping to, and it sounds like there's a chance he'll miss the rest of the season. So that is unfortunate. It sounds like kind of like a stinger, which you hear about in football more often, but it came on a collision, which makes sense. But it's just kind of like he gets like numbness in the shoulder and just things don't quite feel right, and there's pain, and like it just hasn't gone away. So hopefully we see him at some point, but it's not looking great for that. Brock Wilken, he's out for the season. That's not really changing. I wonder if maybe they put him in the AFL again, but I'm guessing they kind of just send him into the offseason and say, let's get ready for spring. Bishop Letson, it was confirmed today, is going to be back on Sunday this week. So I'd heard it was pretty likely he'd be back this week, and he will be pitching for the Timber Rattlers on Sunday now. And then he also asked about Mike Bovey. I don't know what's up with Bovey. He has been out for like the last week. I don't know what it is. He's not on the IL. They haven't put him on the IL, but he hasn't played in like a week. So he asked about him, saying like, so much for the plethora of first base and third base depth in AA, because Adams, Wilkin, and Bovey are all currently hurt. But at least it opened the door for Blake Burke. I don't know what's up with Bovey, but I will say Blake Burke he's taken to AA very well. The thing he wasn't doing in high A was hitting for power, and suddenly the power is all showing up in AA, which is very good to see. There's been 108, 109 mile per hour extra base hits, homers, doubles, smoking the ball all over the field. So don't know why he wasn't getting to it in high A, but the power seems to be showing up in AA, and he's very capable of hitting for power. So anything on any of those that you want to touch on, Ryan? Any of those 5 names that were mentioned?
Well, mostly just so Letson, by starting on Sunday, he probably would start then Saturday in his next start. So I would miss him if I'm going on Friday.
That'd be my guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So not really a useful question from that perspective, but yeah, I guess we could mention that Fisher got off to a good start, had hits in his first 2 at bats tonight. That was something to see, and good for him to get off to a nice start that way.
It even got better as the game went on, because he had a 2-run single to take the lead in the 8th inning, bottom of the 8th. So he ended up 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs and a walk and 2 stolen bases in his debut in high A. So things went very well for Fisher. Very good game for the top 3 in the order in this one. Mate was 3 for 5. Pena was 2 for 4. Pena tied the game with an RBI double as well in the 8th before Fisher knocked him and Mate in to take the lead. So the top 3, the guys that most people were there to see, it was a very good game for them. Marco Dingus had a sac fly, so he got in on the action as well. And they drove in 5 of the 8 runs for the T-Rats in a very nice comeback win. They were trailing for most of the game, and then I started seeing updates. They were down 6-3 heading into the bottom of the 8th and put up a 5 spot and won 8-6. So very good game for the T-Rats in that one. And the Shuckers had a similar comeback on their hands. They scored 14 unanswered after going down 8-0 today. So it was a fun night for the farm in that regard too. Blake Burke was part of that for them. And Cooper Pratt hit another homer, which was good to see. He's had a few homers the last couple of games, up to 7 now on the season. Burke hit another one, like I mentioned. So he's up to 3 in AA, which I believe he hit 5 in high A. So very quickly showing the power, like I mentioned. And Matt Wood hit another homer. He's been really hot in AA. Good night on the farm. I got to check the Mudcats score, but it might have been a undefeated night. I know the Sounds won, and obviously the Shuckers and the T-Rats won. And I can't pull up the Mudcats game right now, but Ryan added a question while I'm trying to pull this up. So if you want to ask it, go ahead.
He did, yeah. So Ryan asks, who is the one more than anybody who got away in this year's draft class? I was out of the country when that was all going on, so I didn't follow it as closely. Who's the guy you're most disappointed that they didn't sign? I think I know the answer to this, but I want to hear you talk about him.
Yeah, it's Cooper Underwood for me, the lefty starter who's committed to Georgia Tech. He's, for me, like that was the Bishop Letson of this class. Like this was a guy that I think was going to really, really take a big step when he got into pro ball. big extension from it's the opposite of Letson in that he's lefty, but a lot of the other things are similar in that he has a good ability to spin the ball. He doesn't walk people. The velo has ticked up a little bit, but there's probably quite a bit more in there than what he showed in high school. Underwood is the guy for me, but I mean, they did a really good job signing a lot of those, what used to be day 3 guys, the 11 through 20 round guys. But it was interesting that a lot of the middle picks in that run didn't sign. Like those normally are the ones you're kind of expecting to have a shot at, and they ended up signing 18, 19, and 20 and 17. So they signed their last 4 picks, but they missed on 4 in a row from 11 through 15, maybe 5 in a row from 11 through 16. So that was interesting to see.
Your catcher, the JUCO catcher, he ended up. Yeah, I thought that was actually who you were going to say. Though then when you say Cabrera, I'm like, oh yeah, we talked about Underwood as being a guy, but yeah, you wanted to see him windmill dunking for the Brewers as opposed to
yeah. I mean, Brock is a really, really good athlete. It turned out like he was one of the first that we knew wasn't going to sign, so I guess I kind of just had crossed off the hope on that early on. That's probably what it was, because he apparently grew up an Oklahoma fan, and that's where he was committed, and like he just kind of wanted to live out the dream of playing for Oklahoma after going to a JUCO and stuff. So like I fully understand that, and wouldn't be a shock to me if the Brewers are back in on him after he graduates from Oklahoma. Hopefully he doesn't do too well there, so they can steal him in the middle rounds like a Marco Dinges pick or something. But no, he is a great athlete, and he would have been a really fun one. Those would have been the 2 for sure, is Underwood and Brock between them. And all the guys they didn't get, like, pretty interesting. Cat is, I mean, just mashed in a college wood bat league. So I was kind of hoping they might steal him from UCLA, but UCLA is probably a pretty tough one to steal from in that point in the draft. And I think the one I should talk about, I didn't talk about a ton after the draft because I didn't know he was going to sign, is Mikhail Holden, their final pick, the 20th rounder, committed to Alabama. Freak athlete. He was possibly going to 2-way at Alabama, but he's been up to 95. He's got good metrics on the pitches. Like, I barely talked about him at any point because I really did not expect him to sign at all, but he signed for way less than I thought. I think it was under 400,000 in the end. So I think that was a huge steal for the Brewers at that point. He's one I'm going to be very excited to follow next year, I would assume, is the first time we hear from him. But yeah, it's Underwood for me still after all of that. That got away more than anyone else.
All right.
Okay, let me quickly bring up this Carolina. Nope, Carolina lost. So they did not go undefeated today. And one of the DSL teams tied at 5-5. So suspended game because of rain, and they called it a tie. But the other one won 6-1. So almost an undefeated day for the Brewers system. Anyone else you want to, I mean, any minor league guys you want to talk about quick? I can always go off the top of my head as best as I can. I didn't prep as much for this one because I had so much going on today. I didn't really gather all the stats like I normally do for a bunch of guys, but just seeing, actually, I'll talk about what I saw in Appleton quickly. Like, first of all, Mate and Pena up close just look the part. Like, they are extremely well built 18-year-old baseball players. Like, it's unbelievable the way they look. Like, they look like they should probably be finishing college. Like, the way that like they went through a college weight program and now they're ready to get drafted. Like, it's very impressive to see up close. I would say Dinges is like an impressive athlete up close as well. But I wrote about some of this at Brewer Fanatic, but just to kind of touch on some of it, like, Dinges didn't have a very good game, but I am as in on him as ever. Like, for me, he kind of solidified himself as basically a top 5-ish guy in the system for me. Watching him in person, the bat speed is ridiculous. He had some very, very good takes against a good pitcher, Wyatt Crowell, who gave me a lot of Robert Gasser vibes on the Dodgers side of things. Like, all 3 fastballs, sweeper, better changeup than Gasser, but probably worse fastballs overall. But like, he was interesting, and Mate had a double down the right field line. Pena took him deep, and Dingus had a block that he took like some really, really tough secondary pitches against, and just an impressive plate appearance from him. And then Dingus also had a ball that I had a 1.75 pop time on when I was timing it, which is very, very good. Luis Pena actually dropped it. And I think that's the one negative I would probably come away from that game with. Pena looked bad defensively, like very uncomfortable. All offseason, I was told that he was the better defender compared to Mate. Like that was what people were telling me. That is not what I've seen this year at all. Like Mate looks like a dude on defense. He looked great defensively in this game. And when I watch him on MILB TV, he looks very good as well. But like his reads and his first step and his trust, like I talked about with Ortiz, like he attacked the ball so well, and he'll have some errors, I'm sure, and he's had some errors, but like there was a confidence to the way he played defense. And for Pena, everything just felt in between, like he wasn't quite trusting what he saw. He had no errors in this game, but he very easily could have had two. Like I mentioned, he dropped that throw from Dingus. He would have been out stealing pretty easily at second. I was surprised they didn't call it an error on Pena on that one. And then at the end of the first inning, this was in the same inning, actually, he had a routine grounder that he booted, but he made up for it because the guy on second rounded third too far, and he showed off a very good arm and gunned him out at third trying to get back. So like you could see the athleticism, you could see the arm strength, like he could play third base no problem with the arm that he has. But he looked very, very in between on all his steps and everything. Some of it might be that he's playing second, but I've seen it at short, I've seen it at third this year, and like these are things that can be cleaned up. So I'm certainly not ruling out that he can be an infielder. I think he can be. I think the good news is that there's a fallback of a guy who could probably be a very good outfielder with his speed and his athleticism. Mm-hmm. And I know some scouts have kind of thought that that was a possibility at some point anyway, but it was not a good showing defensively. And like I said, there were no errors, but Mate looked crazy comfortable, and he made a play spinning up the middle that was very impressive. And then just attacking baseballs and throwing on the run. Like it was a lot different than what you saw from Pena. Offensively, I would give the nod to Pena right now. I think he is currently a better hitter, but the upside with Mate, he's already a good hitter, and the upside with Mate is very, very high. Like, I mean, there's legitimate like prime Francisco Lindor for Jesus Mate that I could absolutely see happening. And that is like a 7-8 win player. Like that is a really, really good player. Mm-hmm. I think Pena could do it on the offensive side, but I don't really see the defense being there for him. And I hope I'm wrong. And he has a lot of time to figure it out. And I'm sure with the athleticism and the arm strength, the Brewers are going to give him that chance. But that was the one thing that I came away with. And I was like, I was hoping that would look better than it did on my screens when I'm watching him, like seeing it in person, seeing the reads off the bat, seeing how he was reacting to stuff. That's my favorite part about going to games is the defense. I think that's what you learn the most about in person is you get to actually like see the full field and see how they're reacting to things and how they look moving around. And I came away like extremely high on Mate's defense and concerned a little bit about Pena's defense in the future. So, and I came away very impressed with defensively as well. I think the receiving has gotten way better this year, and he moves so athletically. He made some really good plays, like jumping on some dribblers and showing off the arm to get him at first, including against Kendall George, who is one of the fastest people I've ever seen in person leading off for that Dodgers high A team. That dude was flying. I mean, routine stuff, and he was just barely out at first on anything that he hit. But he made a play on him on a little dribbler that I was like, oh, that's a hit off the bat. And like, I came away very impressed with him and Mate defensively. And then Pena was kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum. But again, I'll just keep saying it like it. He's 18. He's playing different spots on the infield that he might not necessarily play all the time. And there was really good feedback on him defensively coming into the year. So maybe there's a lack of confidence. Maybe there's just something going on right now where he's not trusting what he's seeing, kind of like I talked about with Ortiz earlier. But just based on what I have seen this year, if one of them's moving, not just off shortstop, but to the outfield, like it's Pena for me pretty easily. So, yeah, we'll see. You'll get to see him in person, so maybe you'll have a different view, and maybe he'll have a better game for you. But that was the only thing I came away with just not feeling great about it. And even still, I would say Luis Pena is easily the second best prospect in the system, and I would gladly put him in like a top 20 in baseball. Like, that's not a problem still, because I think he'll find somewhere to play. And the speed and the athleticism and the bat are all going to be good. So, yeah, but that was kind of the stuff I saw. The pitching was Travis Smith. He 3 fastball mix, classic Brewers. He only really has a slider as a secondary, and it wasn't great. I think if he can get the velo down a little bit on the slider and separate that from fastballs, I like the cutter quite a bit. And he was only like 91 to 94, but he was up to 98 at times in Carolina, 96, 97 at times. So, like, I think he maybe he was a reliever last year, so he's probably just wearing down a little bit as the season goes on. So he was interesting. And then Jesus Broca was the last pitcher I saw, lefty reliever. Previously, when I had watched him pitched, it was like 90 to 91, 92 on the fastball. He sat like 92, 94 in this one, and it played up really well. Interesting lefty arm. I had a good view from like the lefty batter's box point of view, and it was hard to pick up. He's very like over the top. He hides the ball a long time. Like, you don't see the ball until it is coming out of his hand. And then he throws a 80 mile per hour curveball, a changeup in the mid 80s that has always been like the really good pitch for him is the changeup. So 2-seam and 4-seam, both velo up on them, and the numbers have been really good lately for him. So he's one I'll be watching as like maybe a sneaky reliever type prospect that people don't have much of an eye on at the moment. But those were the only 2 pitchers that pitched, and Smith didn't strike anyone out, but he went 5 1/3 of pretty clean baseball against a good Dodgers lineup. I mean, they have Zaire Hope, who that dude is. I talked about Mate and Pena being built. That guy looks like he could have played in the early 2000s as a major league player, and fit in right there with his build. So, and the ball sounded different coming off his bat when he hit it. Like, he doesn't have all the defense and the speed as much as the 2 Brewers guys, but that bat's going to play. He can hit. And the Cubs traded him, so we're very happy with him working out for the Dodgers. But yeah, that was kind of what I saw.
So happy that they traded him. That one is one that I always work that into conversation with my brother anytime he brings up Bush, because Michael Bush has been legitimately quite good for them.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
I actually, when they made that trade, Hope was the guy I didn't know much about. I was much more the pitcher, the left-handed pitcher whose name is
Jackson Ferris.
Yep, thank you. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I was much more interested in him, and I'm like, oh, that's a give up Jackson Ferris. And turns out that Zaire Hope was actually the real give, though that Ferris isn't like done as a prospect. He just hasn't quite turned. He hasn't blossomed the way that Hope has.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because there was a rumor that Corbin Burns, at one point after Counsell took the job, especially, that the Cubs would be looking at Burns as a potential trade guy. And I was like I'm like, well, I got to have fun with this and see what I would be interested in from the Cubs organization. And Hope was a guy that I was like, oh, he hits the ball really hard. He's very young, like as the 3rd piece or something. Like, that'd be a cool one. I'd be interested. So when he got traded, I was like, oh, I do kind of know about him. Hopefully it works out now that he's gone. And it's worked out much better than I would have guessed. So, but yeah, it was a really fun game to go to. And I'll just use the last second here to, like, if you can go watch these guys while they're in the area, like, absolutely go do it. Like, I missed out on Churio when he was in Appleton because it's like the one guy I missed out on, but he was hurt the 1 week I could actually go. And then I was like, well, he'll probably be there. I'll go right away next year. And then he was in Double-A to start the year. And I was like, well, guess I missed him. I saw Miz pitch there, so that was very cool. I'm glad I got to see that. And like, it's always super cool when you get to go back and be like, yeah, I saw that guy when he was, just starting minor league baseball basically. And now I'm watching him do his thing at the big league level. Like, that's always a really cool thing. And I'll have that moment for Hope or guys like that too. Like, it's both teams. Like, you see these guys and you're like, oh yeah, I saw him when he was 19 playing in high A. Like, it's a really cool thing. And also, minor league games are just a good environment and a fun place to watch baseball. And yeah, I would highly recommend it if you're able to get out there, and especially now that Fisher's there. I mean, it's a pretty fun top 4 in the order. You've got 4 guys who all have a very good case for being top 10 prospects in the Brewers organization. So, yeah, anything else you want to add before we wrap up here, Ryan?
No, just I would echo that I'm very much looking forward to going and seeing these guys down in Beloit next week, and it's going to be a good time. And yeah, we should give a little mention. This is mid-year re-rank time, and so there have been new rankings that have come down, including Baseball America giving the Brewers the #1 farm system, though that comes with an asterisk because that does a lot of the heavy lifting of that is being done by Jacob Mizorowski still being on their list, which he's not on other lists. And Jim Callis, I was just before we started here, was listening to the MLB Pipeline podcast, and he said that they had Mizorowski as being ineligible, so he was off the Brewers list. But he said the Brewers, who they ranked 4th, would have been his #1 team had Mizorowski been part of it. He said that he kind of used that as a way to talk about, these farm system rankings are just snapshots in time. And that's an important thing to remember. But still, you saw it in our group chat. James sent it. He goes, Ryan's dreams are all coming true when they ranked the Brewers farm system #1. Because I mean, when you can legitimately say, and I said this to my dad when we were at the game on Thursday or on Wednesday afternoon, I said, right now the Brewers have the #1 team in MLB in terms of record, and they have the #1 farm system in minor league baseball. And it really doesn't get much better than that. Like, that's what else can you ask for other than like postseason success, which you just have to hope. So yeah, they're really a special organization, and we're at a special point in time with this organization because it's not always going to look, even with as good as they are, this moment in time, everything is coming up Millhouse basically for the Brewers. So it's a great time to be a Brewer fan.
Yes, and I would just agree with all of that and just say, like, personally, I would highly recommend enjoying this. Like, this is not something where you have this opportunity very often. So soak it in and enjoy it. And it's a very, very good time to be a Brewers fan. And I think that's a good way to wrap this one up. When I had Ryan on, I knew this was going to be as long or longer than usual because this is what we do. But hopefully you all enjoyed it. And Ryan, before we go, do you have anything else? I mean, plug the podcast, plug your Blue Sky, anything else?
Yeah, so I would like to plug, first off, Milwaukee's Tailgate, which you're a frequent contributor to. Love doing that. Love having you on when you come on. It's a wonderful contribution that you bring to our group there. And also, it is the beginning of Packers season, so our sister podcast, Reporting is Eligible, with Paul and JR and Matub and whoever else, Tyler Brook sometimes pops in there. They have a sort of a rotating cast over there sometimes. Packer season is starting, so if you are into an analytical approach to football as well as baseball, definitely check that out as well. We're getting a lot of memberships rolling in these days, so that's really good. And one more thing, I mentioned that I was on the RotoWire podcast with James Anderson, but next week, Paul and I on Tuesday are going to be on once again. I think this is the 4th or 5th time we've been on with Larry Mueller on Wisconsin Public Radio. You can find that. I'll put it on my Blue Sky and all of that. But we're going to be in talking. Larry's a big baseball fan, and so he wanted to have us on to talk about, well, I'm guessing the wonderfulness that is the Milwaukee Brewers right now. So if you would like to check that out, we always have a lot of fun when we go on with Larry. So you could find that online.
Yeah, absolutely. Highly recommend checking all of that out. And like you said, with Packers season coming up, you get even more bang for your buck with the Patreon subscriptions and everything else over there. And hey, I used to be a patron, and look where I am now. Now I'm part of it. So maybe you'll become part of it. No, but that's definitely recommend all of it. And thank you again, Ryan, for coming on. And I apologize for taking up like your entire night with it. But I hope we had a good time, and hopefully we were insightful for C. Paul Martin. And thank you all for listening, and we will see you this time next week.
Yeah.